Reconvene the March 23rd Supervisors meeting. This is a work session of the Caroline County Board of Supervisors for April 12, 2021. First on our agenda is an update on the results of the bond sale from Courtney Rogers, Davenport Company.
Chairman, take this off so everybody can hear me.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So good news is we had our bond sale last week. We got great rates we're going to talk about. But first, wanted to could give you an overview. Want to give you an update on what the rating agency said, because we did go and we actually went online with the Zoom meetings that we do these days with the rating agencies. Went through a full credit presentation with staff, and then a week later came back with the actual rating. All right. I'm trying to hit a page and it's not working. Hey, Jeff.
Hey,
Will this work? I'm trying to get this one. It says it's on.
So you screen sharing, I don't know why.
You can hit the page if you want. After the second, go to the next page. Feel good?
Yeah, it doesn't work sometimes.
Just go to the next page.
Let's go back.
It's all right. It's not, I don't have that many pages.
Right.
So.
Next page.
Yes, sir. Go one more. And one more.
Give me just a second. It's out the way.
There you go. Perfect. So as you all know, we actually did two different bond issues because we had two sets of projects. We had the water and sewer projects. We wanted to keep under the water and sewer side of the ledger, if you would. And so we issued those as water and sewer system revenue bonds. And then the public facility lease bonds were basically the general government projects. So as I mentioned, when we talked to the rating agencies, we're pleased to report that the rating that came back is the AA2 AA, which is the same rating that we had as the issuer rating, as we call it. And as I mentioned, for lease projects, we actually, the rating agencies go one notch below that. So the bonds we sold were sold as a AA3, AA minus. And that's due in part to the risk factor of being an appropriation debt, meaning that it's annually appropriated by the board. And that's true for all lease revenue bonds sold in Virginia. So on the next page, wanted to highlight the observations from Moody's, and then I'll go through S&Ps. Go back one, sorry, 2 pages. There we go. So the credit strength, moderately sized tax base, experiencing growth. They recognize the growth that we've been seeing. They talked about the healthy reserve and liquidity position. Those are really the two big strengths that we have. On the challenge side, the one thing, and I've gotten to know these analysts very well, the new analyst from Moody's. I've actually worked with her in other states. And when I talked to her, she said, I want to let you know that we actually had a long discussion about the debt side. So I wanted to come back to you guys just to let you know that we are, as we saw in our policies, as I showed you, we're getting close to our ratios. And while those are our ratios, they have their own ratios that they're looking at too. And she said, when we take into account the water and sewer along with the general government, we're getting up. Because as we all know, water and sewer doesn't stand alone yet. We hope one day it will, but at this point it doesn't. When it does, that opens up that debt burden, because that goes off, if you would, that side of the ledger. They don't count it anymore once we have self-supporting, meaning user rates and charges supporting. And we know we're not there. We've got a ways to go to get there. No surprises there. But she did, that was something they don't normally tell us, but she said, hey, we just want to let you know we did have discussion on that. So that was helpful for me as an analyst to be able to come back to you guys and say, what we've been talking about is that we're getting close. And just want to make sure that everybody knows we are getting close.
Did they say how close?
No, they don't really prescribe and say you're 10 million away.
Yeah.
It's really looking at those factors, particularly the debt service to expenditure one, but also the debt to AV, the amount of debt to the value of the county. The policies that we set up that we recommended to you are based on where we think good AA's should be. And so, we think those are solid. We wouldn't raise the bar, but we're not also suggesting we lower it. But the other side that I want to point out is when you look at, part of their analysis is they talk about what could lead to an upgrade, what could lead to a downgrade. Some of it is pretty common sense. You have a substantial tax base increase, county continues to really grow, there's a chance that you could get an upgrade. What that tells me is that we're not capped out at a rating. We could go higher at some point, but we're not there yet. Significant growth of reserves and liquidity. Now, we've got good reserves. We expect to add to them over time, but I don't expect you to go and add a whole bunch of reserves just to get a higher rating. That's not what we're asking you to do either. Moderation of debt burden, that's just going to happen on its own or it's not. I mean, at some point, this, like I said, the water and sewer side hopefully will one day be supporting itself, and that will moderate the debt burden. That's really the only thing outside of just paying down existing debt. But I highlighted on the downgrade side, because I'm not, the upgrade I know is, from a positive standpoint, that is something we have that we can do down the road. What I'm more worried about is the now, which is the downgrade side. And you'll note that they said, these are their words, the trend of operating deficits and narrowing reserve levels. What they don't want to see is, they don't want to see you balancing the budget with the reserves. They don't want to see the reserve levels coming down, because that is one of your credit strengths. That's one of the things that puts us where we are. So we've got to be careful of not going and balancing the budget with reserves every year, because that's what they call deficit funding. And I will tell you that, especially in the last 2 years, that's the thing that has gotten localities in trouble faster than anything, is as soon as you start hitting the reserves for balancing the budget and using it to balance the budget, we're going to hear from them, and they're going to want to dig in again a little bit deeper. What I mean by that is, when they get your audit next year and they see, oh, they use fund balance, they will then call us and say, what's going on? And that's the phone call we don't want to get, because usually those aren't good phone calls. What we want is for them to get their audit, get your audit, they look at it and they go, yep, everything looks good, and we don't hear from them.
Does that mean, they call you, does that mean they'll in midstream change the rate on this?
It can mean that. We obviously will fight for it and push, but what I mean by that is Moody's and S&P in particular, they're supposed to surveillance. They surveil every year. They get your audit, and somebody in the back room looks at it. Frankly, the way it works is they put it in a spreadsheet, and if it gets flagged, then it goes up to the senior analyst, and those are the ones that we deal with. Usually, if we hear something from a senior analyst, that usually gets my, okay, something's up. We got to find out what it is. I start digging. Okay, what's the problem? Sometimes it's demographic in nature. It might mean, like I got one year that had to do with employment levels, not unemployment, but employment levels dropping in the area, and we were able to show them that in fact was not the case, and we gave them empirical data that showed that that was wrong. But whatever database they were using was getting bad data. So the other thing that I highlighted was the substantial increase in debt, and obviously pension burden is part of that. But as I said, we know that we've pretty much taken care of all the big things out there at the moment. I think the only thing that obviously may be out there, I'll throw out, we'll start knocking on your door. That's something we may have to say, okay, guys, we got to wait a little bit, because we're really close on our levels. The other one is, it's more of a common sense. You're opposite of a substantial increase expansion in your tax base. It's a contraction in the tax base or decline in income levels. We don't see that, obviously, at this point. Next page. So S&P does things a little bit differently. They look at different areas, and they give you a score of 1 to 5. Strong being being a 4, if you would. Very strong being a 5. So we have strong economy, it's good. Strong management, adequate budget performance. Nobody really gets very strong budget performance, because typically nobody has a 5% more revenues than expenditures. If Charlie did that year after year, you guys would run him out of here. So it's sort of almost impossible to get. Adequate is not bad, and I'll tell you that normally yours would be strong, but they pretty much knocked everybody down one notch because of COVID-19. Because of the pandemic, they've really knocked everybody down to adequate when it comes to budgetary performance. Budgetary flexibility is very strong. That shows that fund balance. Again, that's our credit strength. Liquidity is very strong. Again, showing that credit strength that not only does fund balance show in your audit, but the cash shows up on the liquidity side. And again, I highlighted in blue there the very weak on the debt. So Moody's said it. S&P also mentioned it as well that hey, you're getting close on the debt side. And then institutional framework basically is a Virginia thing, meaning that basically with your vote you can increase revenues as necessary. Some states don't have that; you have to go to referendum. So that's one of the reasons why we have such great credits in the state. So I'll pause there, Mr. Chairman, see if anybody has any questions about that.
Mr. Thomas,
No, I had mine when it was going.
Mr. Black.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers, not Mr. Davenport this time,
Thank
but just got a question for you. Is that something that, and I don't know if we've seen this before, but the net debt, where it says very weak, 184.9% of total government fund, is that something that we get updated every year on, Charlie, or? Because that would be something that would be kind of a number to kind of monitor as we move forward, because we are having new houses and so forth being built. We do have some new businesses coming in, and I would just kind of be curious over the future years to see how that number would change for us.
We absolutely can track it. That's not something that we typically set up as a policy. We usually use the debt as a percentage of value, which is one that's they look at as well. They just didn't mention it in this.
Okay.
They do mention it if you read the full report. So we usually look at that one as well as what the term carrying charges there is 19%. They're including pension and OPEB as well as debt. The one we use for our policy is debt only.
Okay.
So it's a smaller percentage, but it's a part of that 19.
Okay.
So.
Mr. Sealy.
Okay, so retirement. I thought, you know, when we were looking at the jail and we brought them in and then we took them out, we were in really good shape, like 95%. What are they looking for in terms of?
What we call it the payout ratio, how fast you're paying your principal down. And the calculation we look at is over 10 years. Basically, at year 10, how fast are you, how much principal is being paid in the next 10 years as a percentage of the outstanding amount.
Okay.
And you're in pretty good shape there. Obviously, if we include utilities, since we did 30 years, that slows it down a little bit. One of the reasons why we recommend on general government and schools, we usually use 20 years. One of them, just a personal thing, is after 20 years, the building usually needs help.
Right.
And so I hate to see borrowing 30 years for something that's going to be, you're putting money back into it before it's even, you paid all the original debt off. But with utilities, it goes out a little bit longer. So for general government, we typically use, or the agencies use a number in the 65 to 70% range is really strong. Obviously, anything above that's very strong. And I'm sorry, I apologize, I don't have it here, but I think we were in pretty good shape. If I remember the last presentation when we had it on there, the payout ratio was 70 plus, 77 maybe, something like that. So,
Okay.
not looking at utilities, just the general government. I think,
Right.
I think we're in really good shape here.
I thought 79%. I thought 79%.
Yeah, maybe 79. So it
So
was pretty
it's,
good.
but, so utilities is our rough spot.
If you look at adding all that, it's going to slow you down. Now, when you're looking at a utility, typically you want to see like 40% paid off because again, it's at 30 years, something longer. So 40 to 50 is not bad. Below that means you're maybe kicking the can down the road and pushing things out. So we can calculate that. I'm not sure we did it after post sale, but we can do that.
Okay.
So in order to affect change upon this particular rating ratio, what is the recommendations here so that we begin to, or continue to begin a process of moving in the right direction?
Sure. So economy is one of those that I call it the big battleship. It's hard to turn it in any one direction.
Right.
You know, and you have the least amount of control
Right.
of all those things. And obviously one of those you all continue to do, which is try to bring in businesses, right? Bringing in business is good, and that helps with the economy. The other one that is one that we've helped you get stronger is the management one, which is getting our policies. The only way we get a little bit better is they like to see a 5-year trend projection, and they want to see you projecting out revenues and expenditures, not just for the next budget year, for the next budget year plus 4. And they want to see that talked about in an open project, brought it to you in sort of a work session format. Many years ago, S&P in particular, basically for Loudoun County, when they were first getting their AAA, said until they have that, they're not getting a AAA. And so we ultimately got there, obviously, it's their triple. So that's one of the things that will make that good financial policies go to strong and can help us get to a very strong from the strong. So that's one that is definitely within our reach.
That we have control.
That we can control over. Budgetary reforms is the other one. That's basically looking at, frankly, what they say there is they called it a slight operating surplus on the general fund, but an operating deficit in total governmental. And I always struggle with that because it's not, the deficit there in your case was where you use fund balance for a one-time use of capital. So to be clear, there's two different deficits here. In my term of deficit, it's ongoing revenues versus expenditures. Their definition here, they included one-time use, which is where you use some cash to, I don't remember exactly, don't quote me exactly to make the part remember, but it was like vehicles or something, it was something capital.
Cash for the registrar's expansion, one-time use.
One-time use.
Similar.
Yeah.
Or use cash for
To me, that's not
raises,
operating.
which is on time.
If you use it for raises, then you gotta figure out where am I getting that revenue next year, and the
Right.
year after, and the year after, and that's where you
See,
get.
that's the example you're saying.
Yeah, that's a negative, that's
Yeah,
the ongoing deficit that they're gonna.
So
have
us dipping
concern
into
of.
the fund balance to actually balance our this year's budget is really hurting us.
It can hurt, yeah, because
Well,
if you do it now, what are you gonna do next year and the year after and the year after?
Right.
but now, Courtney, explain to me in terms of dollars, what's the difference in having an AA or an A plus versus a AAA? Because that affects the rate we borrow money. But is it like 5% versus 15%, 1%, 2%?
Gotcha.
What's the difference?
So, and the answer depends on the market time as well. Where we are right now, where interest rates are so compressed and low, the differential is not that big. But if we get back up to 5% interest rates on a tax-exempt basis, which we're now at like 2%,
Right.
then that spread can widen to bigger numbers. So right now, we sold AA issuer, AA3, AA minus bonds. The bonds were AA3, AA4.
For us.
We got downgraded right now. Instead of selling AA paper, we're now selling single A paper for those same leases that I'm about to talk about. So the differential might be another 10 or 15 basis points on whatever the dollar amount, 50 million, 10 million, 25 million, whatever we're issuing at that time.
The basis points are 1%
Quarter, yeah,
of.
25 would be a quarter of 1%.
Right. So that's
Over
for
25 or
this particular $18 million borrowing, that's $180,000.
This is what the taxpayers expect us to take care of.
I understand.
Think of it this way: if you were, we borrowed at roughly 2%. I mean, it's basically a quarter. Take off a quarter, add an extra 0.25% on the whole thing, quarter of the percentage of debt service, of interest. So we look at the interest side and say, okay, there's interest multiplied by 125.
So the interest on 18 million over the 20 or 30 years is probably 4 million.
Actually, I'll give you an example. I just did this analysis for a $60 million school, and $4 million of interest cost over 20 years, and the differential was 70 basis points. We were looking at bank versus public market.
So instead of 4 million, it was 4,208,000.
So it's probably about $1 million. Call it maybe $1.2 million on to 60 million.
So for our borrowing on that same ratio, we're probably talking $500,000-600,000.
600,000 on 30 million, something like that.
Okay.
We borrowed 30 million.
We're not at 30 million.
We borrowed 30 million.
Okay.
All told.
Okay.
Yeah, both of you.
Well, for all the borrowing we have, yeah.
I got through it all.
All right.
Yeah.
Over 20 years, 180,000 more is what it cost us,
600,000 total.
$600,000.
But that's today, that's a good
That's
interest
today.
rates.
Yeah, but
That's what
I'm
that
just saying, what is it,
Right,
you know, my question is, what does it cost us now to have a better rate versus, or what does it save us than worse rate? Now, when the rates are 1979 rates,
Yeah,
it's
then the spread,
20%.
then the spread could be, one. That could be, it could be a 1% differential between an A-rated and, you know, a higher AAA rated. The other thing that's an intangible and hard to put a dollar amount on is, you know, as you're talking to economic development prospects, the higher rating shows, hey, this is a place I want to bring my folks. Could help in the sell. At the end of the day, it could help you make that sell.
Come on.
I tell my economic development people that, you know, they can say, hey, it's a lot easier to talk to folks when we've got a double A range.
I think they're more concerned about housing costs.
Maybe. Okay, does that answer the questions?
Yeah.
See, we're good?
I'm good. There's me.
That's how I,
Appreciate it.
Forces are acting against me today.
glad you can make it, glad you're safe.
Okay, we'll flip two more slides and we'll just kind of, you've seen this slide before, interest rates. Yes, we did the bottom, we did miss the bottom. The good news is rates didn't continually decline on us. If you look at the far right side of that slide, you can see where it jumped up a little bit from January, but it's been bouncing around. That's a 20-year rate around 150. If you go to the next slide on page 9, you can see how rates really kind of flattened out there. It actually started coming down for us a little bit. Good news is we had a lot of demand for the bonds. If you go 2 more slides, page 11, just as a reminder, this is the new money projects for the general government with 8.9 million. We did some over 10, 2.5 million, and then some over 20 years, kind of matching up with the average lives. And on those bonds, we also have some refunding to talk about in a minute, but on these bonds on the next page, page 12, you can see these are the bidders. So what we did is we set the sell date at April 7th. We did 11 a.m. We actually did the water and sewer at 10:30, so we're doing this a little bit backwards. But the JP Morgan was the winner at 1.45. You can see that the cover bid there was 3 basis points less. And then you had a spread all the way to Truist, who honestly, they haven't been in the market in a while, so they're kind of getting back into it. They were off everybody, as you can see. Wells Fargo is a pretty frequent issuer, so you see that really the spread, I'll call it roughly 10 basis points from the real active folks. So that's a very good indication, and that is we have seven bids there. That's a strong number. We'd like to see anywhere between like 4 and 6 is a normal number. We're starting to see more bids than less. That's just showing the demand for the package of paper right now. Next page has the debt service schedule, the 10-year projects there on the left, 20-year projects on the right. So aggregate the debt service there is going to be, as you can see, about 700,000 there when it peaks, and then 400,000 for the 20-year pieces. The really good news is on the next page. We did have some refunding candidates that we talked about. We looked at 9.1 million of bonds to refinance, and we were able to refinance all of them, saving $600,000 in interest costs. You can see the all-in TICs there for each of the pieces, varying amortizations. And normally, I think when we talked to you all, we were about 200. We ended up about 200,000 higher than what we showed you. I think we were in the 400 range, and we ended up in the 600 range. So all in all, it ended up being a lot better than what we anticipated. Of course, we had a cushion in our numbers. Next page shows you the actual savings, and they vary because some of the loans pay off a little quicker than the others. But you can see it's 70,000 for this budget year, and then it changes from the different years depending upon the amortizations. But again, slightly higher than what we showed you before. So when we look on the next page, this incorporates the existing debt plus the new money. and we've adjusted the existing debt for the refunding. So this is the updated to the minute debt service schedule for the general government schools debt. So about 8.4 million for the next several years level, and then it will drop down after that. So that was part of what we were doing with some of the structuring. The reason we don't have interest in the first couple of years there on the new money bonds is we wanted to keep that spike so you didn't have to come up with additional revenues to be able to pay for that debt. Refunding savings on there as well.
Give us the years on this.
Yeah, I just noticed that. On the next page, what we did is we took those schedules and using what was proposed in the 22 debt service schedule, and I don't know if that's changed, Tamika's changed that or not, but the 8.242, you would need an extra couple $100,000 to get to that level debt that would basically hold you over for the next 4 years, and then a little bit more in 23. But essentially, a couple $100,000 would basically keep that debt level for the next 4 years before it drops down. And that's lower than what we showed you about almost 100,000. So on the next page, you can graphically see this, the debt service again, very flat there for 4 years, and then it'll start its decline after that. So really to take on any additional debt, as we were just talking about at the outset, from a rating agency perspective, we'll be able to pick some more things up about 5 years, 6 years down the road, and start picking up some additional debt as it drops down. It's assuming very little growth in the budget. So let's talk about the water and sewer. If you'll skip over 2 pages to page 20, again, 20-year projects there for the first two, about $1 million, and then the larger projects amortized over a longer period of time, just a shade under 22 million total. The next page we showed the bids. We actually had 8 bids on this one at 1030. Wells Fargo came in at a 209. Citigroup in the 4th decimal place, only 3 basis points. So that was very, very tight bidding. 9 basis points to the next one, which is one of the reasons why we put these out for competitive bid rather than just say go out and hire one of these named firms. You never know who's going to have the sharpest pencil on the day and the time of the sale. So very, very good in competitive bidding. Very pleased with the results of that one. The 30-year money, basically just a shade over 2%, and take it all day. On the next page, kind of shows the debt service schedules for the 20 and the 30-year projects. And again, you'll see, if you look in the last column there, it jumps around a little bit, debt service-wise. And part of that is, you'll see in a moment when we put it all together, it has a rhyme to the reason. Skip one more page over. Oh, sorry, go back 23. Yep, that one. So this one is better than by about $100,000 than what we showed before. Again, needing about $500,000 in 22 and another $500,000 in 24 in order to get the current budget basically up to the new budget with the new debt. So all in all, just a shade over $1 million. That gets us up to about 3.5 million in revenues, which we'll need in 2024, and then it declines a little bit over time, but right around that 3-point level for a number of years. And you can see that on the next slide graphically. We've got a couple years where debt service is a little bit lower, and then it's going to jump up to 24 just to give ourselves a couple years to get to it. And then once the projects will be fully up and running, we'll start paying that and amortizing that debt down.
So we are really at capacity on utility debt.
Oh, yeah.
We're beyond what we need.
If we had more users, it'd be nice.
More users.
That's the key.
That's the key. That is the key.
Don't look at me, I told you where to get it.
Yeah, the key's going to be building the base over time for sure.
Did you get an email somebody like your utility? Did you get it?
So that's all I've got. Hopefully that's helpful. Wanted to make sure that we brought the news back from the agencies in particular. But also know that the way we did the sale worked out great. From a timing standpoint, we were trying to get it in before next month, just because of the unknown. Who knows, rates may go down between now and next month. But we did have to get VRA's consent to do the utilities this way. They were fine with it. They didn't give us pushback. I always worry about going back to a VRA too often as well, so I think this is good. We were able to get this done away from them. Because we have had clients with a lot of debt. VRA, basically VRA says, we're done. And I've got one project in particular right now that's that way. So I know it can happen. That was one of the, as we started thinking about how do we get this done, lowest cost, also taking into account market and knowing that VRA was not going to be in the market for another month. I'm pleased that we were able to get this done and get it done at a good rate.
Now one question. We are locked in this fixed rate for this term.
We are locked in. So these are locked in for 10 years. Refinancing will be basically at 10 years.
With the unlikely chance rates go down to 0, we can't refinance till 10%. I mean, till 10.
For 10 years.
10 years, okay.
But
And
is there a call on those at 10 years if rates go up 4%?
no, we don't have, meaning we don't have, we're locked in no matter what. It's your choice whether you want to refinance or not. Nobody's going to call you and say
After 10
you have
years.
to refinance.
Okay,
This is all your call. We can advance refund, meaning if rates go down 5 years from now and we could refinance these. The likelihood of refinancing these, I didn't get this much
I mean,
detail.
it's
but-
really unlikely because it's
Yeah, because
2% now.
here's the one thing that I didn't show you is when we sold this debt, bonds aren't sold at par like you would if you went to the bank and borrowed money. You asked for 100,000, they give you 100,000. Here, they sell bonds at coupons and yields, and we bid them out. We didn't say you have to give us these. We said give us the lowest rate all in. So after the call date, the coupons are like 2%, 3% or 2% or less. We're probably not going to refinance 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
Now I've said that before. When we've done lit loans for folks at 3%, we said we'll never refinance those. We've actually refinanced some of those in the last few years. So I'll never say never, but at 2%, I find it hard to believe we're going to refinance.
But this is totally different than the way we got caught with the school refunding, which was
Right.
25 million, and then the tax law changed and we had to refinance.
Yeah, that's not
Because it cost us $1 million.
We have no, if Congress were to lower taxes on the public, because it's sold publicly, there's no recourse to us for rates to go up.
Okay.
Right. Conversely, if tax rates go up, they're not going to give us a discount either. So
Sounds like you did a real good job.
it worked out great. It's always nice when a plan comes together, and so.
We didn't quite finish up. A point I wanted to try to understand was if we were to be downgraded due to reduction in continued spending in the fund balance, how long does that normally last to recover from?
Oh, great question. So typically they want to see 3 years of getting back to where you were before they'll consider, and sometimes it could even take longer. They want to see that. They want to see that just because you got there 1 year, you're going to continue moving in the right direction. And I've seen it take even longer because things that happen outside your control, like pandemic hits. I know there was we had one credit that should have been upgraded last year, didn't because of the pandemic. In a normal year, they would have got upgraded, no question. Because they basically had used fund balance several years back. It happened to be a utility. They had used their fund balance. They got downgraded before we had been hired. They hired us. We said over a period of 5 years, this is where we got to go. They did it. They had new projects came on board. We put a plan together, went to the rate agencies right in the middle of the pandemic. And basically S&P said, would have happened in any other year, but not now. So, so it does take time. That's a great question. Thank you.
It's not easy to fix them, guess what I would.
But is that something they do after 1 year? Or is that something they do after multiple years?
It depends. Sometimes it can depend on the analyst. It can depend upon the amount. It's hard to say, but it can happen in a year.
So last year we spent money from the fund balance.
2 years in a row, we spent money from the.
But in some of those cases, we were able to use the argument that it was one time.
Yeah.
It was for one-time use.
Well, the last 2 years in a row, we spent from the fund balance.
Correct.
Less than $2 million.
No.
Yeah, 1.7 last year and 900, 800, or 900 the year before.
But each of those years, we spent $2 million in cash for the Ladysmith Road, right?
No,
No,
we just
we
borrowed
already
that.
saved that.
No, we borrowed, we had 3 payments, we
Yeah,
borrowed the last
we
payment.
did.
We borrowed the
paid-
last payment.
We
Right.
spent $2 million
Right.
We spent
each
4
year.
million, yeah.
No, it wasn't
No,
each
what-
year.
Last year.
Yeah, it was, 4 million.
No. Yeah, but we
Total
did, but
price
it
was
was
6
a
million,
couple
we
years
just
ago.
paid 2.4, so
The
you do
first
math.
$2 million
We had
payment was
$1
several years
million
ago.
payment, then we had another payment.
Right,
after
but I'm
that.
saying it was
Right.
We
But-
paid
but-
cash for 4 million.
4 million cash out of the 6
paid-
million.
right.
The first
And we
payment,
financed
the first payment
just
came
2.
several years ago, that it wasn't.
Wasn't last
It
year.
wasn't last year that
No,
we paid it,
But
I'm
the
saying.
point last year is we spent $2 million for the road fund, and we've spent 1.7 out of the fund balance. So I'm just saying to Courtney, when you go back and say, well, hey, they really should have financed this project, and instead they paid cash for it, so it's not really like we spent money out of the fund balance.
Tamika, what do you,
No, I said reserve, that came out
That
of
was
reserve.
some discussion, we did actually have that discussion on the fact that there were years prior where there was money that was being saved and put into the fund balance,
For
so
the-
that then we could use this money from the fund balance for these past 2 years. So
Right.
they recognized that there were some good years where we had surpluses, and then those 2 years were because we were actually putting that money aside to make sure that we could have those purchases. We did have conversations on that at the front page.
And it's
Yeah, they still consider it-
Probably would help us not go
they
down
still-
from the double they were at.
They still consider
Yeah.
it come out of the fund balance, even though we saved it and put it in the fund balance for that
Yes, but
purpose.
that was
They
noted.
considered it still as a negative. Correct, am I correct?
Yes, but I think that we saved ourselves
Right.
because we
For many
said,
more.
hey, this came out of the fund balance because there were years when we were putting this money aside so that we knew that these items were going to come. Those CIP items that we utilized
Right.
for $1.7 million for
Fund balance
last
has to be
year
a minimum
and
amount.
things of that sort. So they recognized that as, hey, yes, we did have these 2 items where they came out of the fund balance, but we see in the previous years where we were actually saving this money. So that was okay, that
A
was
wash,
an
yeah.
It negated
explanation
it,
for
yeah.
that.
Okay,
But
Yeah,
I
but
think,
it-
so
but-
what they're saying now is, hey, you've been warned, we recognize that you did that for this time, let's not do it. Let's not
got
continue
you,
to do it.
okay.
But see, we never really would have been there if we'd have stuck with the original agreement, which was to finance it over those years. We would still have,
but the financing would be $6 million now instead of 2.
Right.
And we were planning on paying for that with the revenue we were gonna get from Walmart. That didn't-
Right.
Yes.
from those other things, but you would have spent, instead of the financing 6 million, you probably would have spent $1 million at the most in debt service between now and then, and our fund balance would have been 3 million more.
Yeah, but we wouldn't have the money, we wouldn't have the revenue coming in because we don't have Walmart there right now. So we've been in a deficit situation, so spending cash up front was our friend because we're not paying debt service now on money that we borrowed, and we're still another year away from any return. So,
That's the point, is we're a year away from return, but that return is gonna be a few things, and that debt service would have then
but
been
it's no
paid for by
different,
that return.
but it's no different than the utility system. When you look at the debt we're in, and you look at the amount of money that was spent, when you look at those numbers over 23 and you look that it doesn't trail off till 40, I mean, we've spent a whole lot less. We used cash to bet on new revenue that was gonna come with the 639 road project. So if you applied the same to the debt fund, to the utility debt, to the utility
But I
fund,
mean,
it
I'm
would
not
be.
talking about utility.
No, but it's
Mine
the
was
same
specific,
philosophy.
but it was specific. Here's $4 million we took out of our fund balance. And that's all I'm saying, is we took that $4 million out. We now have, as Courtney said, the lenders are saying, you taking money out of your unencumbered balance.
But
That wouldn't have happened if we stuck with the original plan.
no, because we're still 1.7 out of the fund balance over this last budget year.
That's the $2 million you took out for the road.
But anyway, let's stop there. The reality of it is,
Can't turn back now.
the decision that we made to do that is based on us trying to get to someplace with infrastructure. And as we all talk about, the question is, when do you put money into infrastructure in order to prepare for growth? As we see that's coming in the county now in terms of the building that's taking place.
We agree it's a good idea. I mean, it's a good idea. All agree it's a good idea.
So
We all agree it's a good idea.
So the reality of it is, we're going to run into situations like this as we continue to help our infrastructure grow for growth later on.
That's just utility expansion.
That's what, right, that's just a reality. So what we need to make sure is that, I think that Courtney's trying to say that based on the financial institution, how they look at ratings, they view what we did as not the most positive thing to do for our rating. Am I correct in saying that?
Correct.
So therefore, we just need to make sure that when we make decisions, that we fully understand the full implication. That's all. We're gonna have fire department. We're gonna have a fire department. We're gonna have to have infrastructure, water, sewer. It's just the nature of the beast that we're in. This is government. So we need to make it as painless as possible for the community and to make sure that we're running and utilizing every penny as best we can. That's my take on it.
These rates are pretty
Am I okay with that?
Yes, sir.
These rates are pretty painless compared to other rates we've seen
Yes.
over the years.
And the other thing too is I think Jeff's right, we're maxed out on utility, but by doing these projects, we're setting ourselves up for a long time too. We shouldn't have to do a major project on utilities for a very long time.
We won't be able to. But that's part of it though.
I mean,
And that's the point I just was trying to make there, is that we're putting ourselves in a situation where the county continue to grow without putting money, huge money, into water and utilities and like I said, we got the fire department. We're gonna need those things as we grow. It's just gonna be the operating costs we're gonna have to deal with other ways. But in terms of the infrastructure, we're doing the best that we can. The question is, hey, when do you do this? That's all a guessing game, and I think we're making there's always gonna be a pro and a con. And so we continue to do what's best based on the information we have and how we choose to grow. But like I said, we are at the maximum number in terms of utilities, so hopefully we won't have to dip into that anymore, and we move forward. No issue there, other than, like I said, that part, we move forward and we go on. And I think we're in good shape. Yes, sir, Mr.
Since I see Mr. Shebo in the back, since we're gonna be running a line from one end of the county down to the middle, can we please put some fiber in that line? I'm serious, I didn't laugh. We ought to be able to work out.
Not sure you can even buy it to put it in, that's the other.
We ought to be able to work a deal with somebody while you've got a trench in the ground. We ought to be able to work a deal with somebody that they run fiber. So let's all just be aware of that, please.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. All right. Mr. Courtney, anything else, sir?
Do you know how much it is?
I don't. I've seen some estimates.
I'm trying to get something how much it is.
I mean, he was asking about the stimulus
Don't
estimate.
tell him, he's not gonna tell me.
I mean, I'm seeing what NACO put out there. I see Mayor NACO put out there.
What's the stimulus money? What's the stimulus money that's gonna come next go around, do you know?
Next go around, no, I just know about the 6 million we're getting.
That's fiscal round, well, that's the next go round.
That's this round.
Yeah, we should be getting 3 million,
3 million, either April or May, and then 3 million in the next year.
yeah, April, May next.
That we don't have
What
to
are the
use,
regulations?
we don't have to use right away?
We're trying to figure that out.
December 31st of 2022.
Is that for public debate, or is that absolutely true? That's what's gonna happen, or are we expecting?
No, that amount's right, yeah.
It is right.
We just don't know what we
Stipulations, we
can
don't
use it.
Yours
for.
come
But
from the
I said,
state.
we don't know what they're saying we have to do. We're just saying this is gonna be the amount.
You don't have to use it until 24.
No, my question is what it can be used for. We don't know.
For infrastructure?
But that's,
No, this isn't an infrastructure bill.
No, that's the
This is-
next bill is working on.
Yeah, this is yeah. It's, for capital purposes, they basically said broadband, water and sewer.
so water and sewer is included. Okay,
And plus, there's some more state money that we're gonna apply for water and sewer stuff.
okay. All right, that gives us.
There's lots of
I
different,
think-
there's lots of different pockets of money.
We should, okay,
Yeah.
We know
this shouldn't be the first conversation about
I
it.
don't, I've heard that.
Reggie, you know, the schools are gonna get through.
No, I think
Because
we're
they
gonna
get
get
separate.
They get
They're gonna
separate,
get separate.
they get separate money.
Yeah, they get separate money.
I don't know what that.
I think it's 3 million.
I think that'd be more than that.
Okay,
No, I think that's it. Hopefully this is helpful. I mean.
It's very helpful.
Obviously,
Good job.
I thought it was.
I know it's, I've been with you guys a long time. I've seen, we've gone from basically having to borrow for fund balance to building it up. And obviously you've done a great job doing that. It's, it's never easy running a government. I know you guys just got the reassessment and build up, and then, it's a number of years before you see that again, and you've got a lot of needs that are built up over time, so it's tricky. Never easy. I can remember being here doing the budget in '09.
Life's hard when you're poor, I'm telling you.
yeah, life's hard when you're poor.
Yeah. But,
All right,
if
thank
you
you.
have questions, let me know.
Any other questions?
Roll Tide.
Nancy, any questions?
There's no expenditures for.
Who's going first? Smith or,
Ms. Long, I know you came in late and there were some things discussed, and I'll be happy to go over those with you later.
Okay,
But
that's
if you
fine.
have, but based on what you've heard, if you have any questions for Mr. Courtney before he leaves,
I appreciate that, but
I want to give you an opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood, I think I'm fine.
Okay, and I'm, again, glad you're safe and everything went well, and
And right after I got here, I got an alert saying they'd opened 301.
all right. All right, thank you again.
Thanks, guys.
Next on the agenda is the discussion of proposed FY '22 budget, and Mr. Cully, I believe you're going to do the conversation. Gonna start it anyway. We're gonna have a
I
conversation.
thought y'all were gonna have a conversation.
Yeah, we are, but
So,
just you rack it up and let's roll.
So I'll here to entertain your questions or anything that you have. That is one of the ones I just heard, that $3 million is in the budget. I know we told y'all we were getting the stimulus money. We have not had any place to, it's in the CARES budget.
It is, it just that I missed it too.
I didn't realize that.
It just
Mr.
says
Cully.
CARES, it says CARES, it says 3 million, but there's nothing
They just
extra.
approved all that stuff, so.
So I guess I read that sort of as,
You
we were hoping.
realize
it was
that
coming.
it's in the budget?
There's no expenditures for it. It's not in the operating budget, it's in the CARES budget. There's a fund called CARES. It's not in the it's not revenue in the operating budget.
We don't.
We don't have it yet.
No,
it's not a received revenue yet, so.
No, we don't have it yet, and that revenue from that budget won't come in until next year. So we're gonna actually get 3 million in this current year.
Right.
And it'll go in the CARES fund, you'll have to appropriate it in there.
Right.
But we have no planned expenditure yet, we're still trying to determine what those things are we can use it for.
Call fund balance, no. All right, so,
It's restricted
I know.
in that fund,
I'm
but
just
it
kidding.
does have to be spent by
Right.
24.
that's okay.
But it's money that we can use for public safety and things like that.
Not like we
before?
could the last time, no.
Okay.
So you can do stipends and some things like that with it and pay shift differentials and adjust pay, but you can't supplant.
Do stipends instead of raises.
Doesn't count for
We can
retirement.
do 9
Yeah,
more.
that,
Who cares?
And what do you do when it
You're
goes?
still looking at it though.
Well, yeah, we're still having meetings, with NACO and the people that are supposed to be writing the rules. That's what happened with the last CARES. Remember, we were told about 6 different things we could do with CARES money before they finally settled on what we could and couldn't do. We were waiting for the summer, the last time.
Did you raise that?
The only thing
Right.
I know for sure is
That goes for
that
everybody.
this will be the county's money. We won't have to
No
give
town.
money to the town or anything.
The towns are getting their own.
They'll get their
Directly?
directly.
Yeah, I think Bowling Green's at $1 million. I forget how much Fort Hall's getting. It's a giant number for you guys. Does anybody remember that number?
I don't know.
No.
Okay, so based on the budget that Mr. Cully, presented at our last meeting, that was based on our, equalized tax rate of, 77, is that right?
69.
69, excuse me, 69, and we discussed going to 77, correct?
Oh, I didn't know.
Well, we've advertised, yeah, so
Advertised.
we've talked about it, but
So I think,
we haven't said
so
anything.
we haven't said it, no, I'm saying, we discussed
That
it,
public hearing's tomorrow.
right?
No,
No,
so right,
it's the next week.
That's the next
public
one.
hearing is on the budget.
The
but
20th.
Tax
Right.
rates, public hearing is
Right.
Tuesday, the
20th.
following week.
Okay.
Now, so we're not gonna restrict people tomorrow about just the budget and not the tax rate, are we? Because that's our fault. We made.
I think we should,
That's a bin question. You can listen to it if you want. but
I think we
it's
should
not
listen
part
to it
the
because of,
record.
Yeah,
just to make sure that we hear everyone's concerns, so, but,
that's up to us to decide tomorrow. I
Yeah.
just wanted to say.
We just need to make sure everybody knows that we're not making that decision.
not tomorrow.
Right, but
Right.
we
On
need
the
to,
20th.
the important thing is to make sure we don't cut people off that are here to talk about the tax rate. And we say, no, you can't talk, about that. We say, well, okay, we'll accept only conversations on the budget and tax rate, for public hearing. Because it's our fault to add it, didn't get in right. Okay, I'm good.
It's been on, just make sure I think we're okay.
I think you can
I
listen
think
to it.
we're fine.
I think
We're gonna suspend the rules that we
We-
made, right? Can't we
That's
suspend the
what I'm
rules?
saying we have to do.
suspend the rules and go on and listen to that comment.
But not the time limit, but not the time limit.
No, not the timing,
We're gonna give them all 30 minutes, yeah.
So I guess on page 3, Mr. Cully, of the packet you gave us, this is what makes up the tax increase for the 22 budget, correct?
I'm not looking at the page, but.
Yeah.
The general fund
In our budget.
in our budget book? Anybody have any questions? We can start from the bottom, or we can look at, if you have questions regarding where those increases are coming from, certainly I have a couple, but I'll wait.
But just to be clear, if I could ask a question.
Yes, sir.
The very first one on here is the 806, 321,
Right.
which is the transfer to schools.
Correct.
And you're saying that it's the budget to match state funds provided for 5% raise
Yeah.
for all school employees effective July 1st.
That, to me, would be, that was a number we got and worked on, but that would be 5% across the board for everybody after the state gives their share for the SOQ positions and bus drivers, cafeteria workers, janitor, everybody 5%.
But my point is, and we have no control once we appropriate the money,
We do not.
but this amounts to just the dollar value for raises and nothing else.
Correct. If they're gonna hire additional people, they have to get that out of their existing budget.
All right, just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, where is the money that we need for the VATI grant?
It's not budget. You gotta have that.
What else
as
is,
well.
yes. What other projects do we have that aren't budgeted?
Extension to the building for the registrar's office.
And what is that?
$300,000 for a stoplight. That was originally $1 million for the Walmart project, but we got out of the million when Walmart backed out and the board agreed.
So hold on, can you just go slowly through that, the not budgeted? And then, so for the VATI,
600,000.
614, How much for the, what's the next thing, the registrar?
Yeah, we think 400.
I already talked to me.
400, and then how much for the stoplight?
See, I think we take half of it and give them
The
that.
light was 300.
Yeah, it's coming from the fund balance initially, it's not in the budget because
They
it's
don't know we are, right?
So what's the, what's
300 for a stoplight.
300 for the stoplight?
Where?
Lady
639?
Smith Road at, Sheets.
So you're looking at a total of about 1.3 million that's not
Correct.
budgeted.
And
That's
what
not
about,
budget.
what
It's
about the
not
line
budgeted
to dawn?
because it's not in here
Is that
because
set? We have a price
we
on
approved
that
like the registrar's office,
That they're
we've
working
got the
on that.
stoplight we've gotta do for
I
sheets,
don't see anything about
and we've got the,
The what, Nancy?
yeah, and then we've got
Nancy?
I said, how about
614
putting
in the
more money
background.
in for internet? If we have anything budgeted in
Oh.
there for more internet infrastructure.
That light will pay for itself so
Yeah.
fast it ain't funny.
What about schools? For me, there's an elephant in the room, and we talked about, in the schools, we've talked about, and I'll just go line by line. For the 5.5 across the board, it's 806, and we know that they had 600,000 from a health fund that they had left over, I believe. Was that correct?
Reduce cost of insurance.
Reduce cost of insurance. I said, they said they're gonna do some other things with that, but I think I just think it should go back to the employee somehow, rather than, make them pay. I think they should have to kick money in there.
Since you know how all these school things work, and I don't, the match from the state funds, to match that, but that doesn't include all the employees getting
Right.
anything, right?
no, it's,
So they can
It
take
does.
that
It
money.
does.
This does, 806 does.
806 is.
It's everybody.
That's
County
everybody?
money.
Wait, the 806 is just our share.
This is our share.
Right.
They
Our
get
share.
another 600 or 700, what is it, 600?
800.
But
They
there
get
are a lot
another
of
800 from
people
the
that
state.
work at the school that weren't included in the state mandate.
Right, that's
Right,
what
that's,
we're making up.
that's a 806.
That's what this does. This gives
Right.
every employee, whether they're funded by the state or not, 5%.
So Nancy,
Well,
this
why
is
couldn't
our
they take
2%.
600,000
So-
and cover that.
So
That's
Nancy,
what
this
Reggie's
is,
saying.
so Nancy, this is our 2% match to get to the 5 for the SOQs.
Mhm.
This is our 5% for all the other employees. That number together is the 806.
Right.
Wait, before you say that, there's another 800,000 coming from the
From the
state.
state, right.
Which means there's 1.6 million for raises.
Total, right,
oh, 800 from us and 800 from the state.
right. But I was just saying, that's how the breakdown of funding is. So if we give them the 806, that's $1.6 million that they have for pay raises, to use at their discretion. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Smith.
I'll add that, so of the 806, 470,000 of it is required
For the match,
for the match.
for the
That's
SOQ
our
match.
local match for
lowest we
the
can go.
For the
SOQ.
SOQ.
So
Right.
the lowest you could go would be 470, 870.
Okay, 478.70. Okay.
470,000, 870.
Right. Okay,
That's the match.
And
that's
for
the match,
SOQ.
and then the other part is for the
Non-SRP.
non-SOQs. And we were on the phone with.
We're on the non-SOQs here.
Right.
That money from
Right.
the state has nothing to do with the SOQ, non-SOQ.
That's correct, non-SOQ.
Right.
That's correct. The 806 from the state is for the SOQ positions only. We're making up the difference, the 2%, as I said, plus the 5 for non-SOQ positions, which totals the 1.6.
You said we were on the phone with
When we were on the phone with, we talked to we were on the phone with Saturday
the
with
former governor.
the
Yeah.
former governor talking about them not sending out mandates for pay raise, but that's neither here nor there yet.
Right.
My feeling, and I don't know if anybody else agrees, they have money that they say they have other projects to do, but yet they say paramount is increasing teacher pay. You're speaking out of both sides of your mouth, and that's what is my
Not really.
concern.
They do have some
Because you
mandated
have-
employees to hire as
You
well.
have, it's just like us, we have.
No, not higher, no, wait a minute, not higher. Not higher, Mr. Cullen, I think that's the wrong word. They have positions that they have to fill.
Correct.
And they have positions that are not mandated that they could lose.
That's true.
So,
Wow.
that's right, so it's not mandated that we fund those positions.
No, I'm not saying we
It's up
fund them,
to,
I'm saying that they have to fill those positions.
that's up to them.
Oh, yes.
So I'm saying we put the money in place to do what we need to do. They need to make decisions, like I'm gonna ask other folks in a minute to do the same thing. So that's my position. Is they have, she says she has 700 employees now. I think the latest we got says she has 633 employees. I think that's what the email said. So, but at the meeting, she said she had 700 employees. So I don't know which one is which. All I'm saying is all those are not mandated. I think that's up to them to do what they need to do. Based on what Mr. Courtney's saying here, there are going to have to be some tough decisions made in order to run government effectively. And that's what we're supposed to do. I had a couple of conversations with the chairman of the school board and one of their members, and they feel that once we give them the money, whether they spend it or not, whether schools closed, we gave them 10 million, and schools stopped operation, that the money should go to them regardless. And we should get out of the way and let them do that. I don't have a problem with that, but what I say is that I'm not giving you the money. I'm gonna take tighter control. And I think at this point, from just Reggie Underwood's perspective, I say we take tighter control. If we're giving folks money and we have no control, then it's our issue. It's not their issue, it's our issue. We're the gatekeeper in terms of the funding. That's my feeling.
So all the non-SOQ positions, 5% is only $200,000?
No, 3.
Increase of
335, 451.
What are those employees?
Yeah, but the
I know.
non-SOQs are like bus drivers, cafeteria workers, teachers' aides,
Paraprofessionals.
And some teachers.
and some teachers, right?
And
Right, some teachers are not SOQ, no,
Right, some
it's not
right.
all the teachers.
That's not.
Now, I wanna make sure I understand what we're all saying. The school board, when we met with them jointly, said that their insurance costs had gone down,
600,000.
and I thought it was 6, and I think that sounds like what they said. And I asked the superintendent if they were gonna give that back to the teachers or the employees, and she said, we're gonna use that for other things.
I disagree.
Do you think it would be good for us to say, you can use that money for teacher raises? Or are we saying additional teacher raises, or are we saying use that savings and then we're gonna move some of the money that we plan to give you around? What are we saying?
I'm saying that 600,000 that you have should go towards making sure that all employees have that 5% pay raise first.
But that's a one-time thing though. When they use that this year, they're gonna come back to us.
No, that's not
no,
one-time money,
No, it's in the budget.
it's in the budget.
It's in the budget for next year.
Well,
Well, we don't know if it's in the budget for next year, because what's gonna happen to healthcare for the next year?
Well,
See, I'm not doing hypotheticals. I'm not,
Well,
if all hell breaks loose, this is for naught. What I'm gonna do is deal with reality, and the reality is, they said they have 600, Jeff, and that's what they have, and we have proposed, the governor has proposed a 5% for SOQ, the non-SOQs are left up to us. That's a reality. And I'm not dealing with what ifs. That's what I'm not dealing with. I'm dealing with the reality of what we're dealing with to make this budget.
So do you think in reality, if we don't give them what Mr. Cully proposed, do you think in reality, everyone's gonna get a 5% raise?
That's
In
not my
reality.
issue.
In reality.
That's not my issue.
It
If
is.
they want me to give them, if they say, once you give us money, then get out of the way and we do what we want, then we need to give it to them, but we need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence in terms of giving money out. I don't have any problem with getting out of the way. The question is, will you like how I get out of the way? That's all I'm saying.
But given the 806, as Mr. Cully recommends, basically covers the requirements for the match, which is 470,
Plus some.
and an extra 335 for the non-SOQs.
For the non-SOQs.
So if we do that much, and just that much, we've said we take care of the raise that the General Assembly approved.
Yes.
And some.
And the ones that.
And the non-SOQs.
And have added
And 100%
enough money
non-SOQs.
for the non-SOQs to
That's
get
correct.
that same 5% rate.
Yes.
Okay. The insurance savings, one time, recurring, whatever it is, we're gonna leave that to the school board and say, you guys save X amount of dollars, you can use that whatever kind of way you want to, or?
I'm not for it, but they are. I mean, Jeff is, I guess.
See, now, the reality, because I do remember yesterday, which was reality, when insurance went up,
Right.
we helped cover that $900,000.
Yeah, we did.
Multiple years.
Yeah. They still owe donuts to me, but that was beside the point.
The
So-
600,000's in their budget.
Correct.
I mean, if they're gonna save it, and the other thing we're not talking about is they've got an increase in sales tax of 130,000
Right.
that we had to ask about. So now you're closer
CARES
to,
funds,
huh?
and CARES funds.
That's totally different.
That's
That's
different.
just
Yeah,
a
we're not
bonus.
even in that,
operational
but my point, Jeff, is that the 600,000's there.
It's just sitting there.
And they're gonna take that money and
They're gonna
and they
ask for
still
sure.
want us to pay for teachers, additional teachers, because they don't have the money for it.
Yeah, they have 600,000.
No, see, that's not what they said.
Here's the worst part about that 600,000, so insurance costs have gone down, but when they spike back up, if they use that 600,000 anywhere else in their budget, for raises, to hire other employees, it's not there, and they're gonna be back looking at you going, our insurance went back up.
But by definition, that's what they have to do, because their budget is an operations budget.
Right.
So
But I'm saying-
if
That's what it's planned to
If
do.
I save money over here and put it in my operations, I basically have created a recurring expense.
Right, that's where insurance lives, I mean, it's in their
So,
budget.
yeah.
It's in their budget, so if we've increased their insurance money to them over the years, sometimes with one-time leftover reversion funds and leftover
Yeah.
Anthem funds, and their total insurance number that that the schools had to pay got to be what it was, and now they've had a little bit of a savings, better experience, so they've come down and don't need to spend this money that they've gotten in the years past. Well, all I'm saying is, if it starts getting spent in the operations budget for anything else, it's
It's
gone
reoccurring.
when insurance goes back up.
Right.
But it's just the.
How can we justify increasing taxes on the taxpayer and looking at their money differently than we look at money that we appropriate for operating any of our departments? How can we justify saying, oh, well, what if? I just don't understand. I would say, well, you put it in your pocket, save it for a rainy day, or save it for, I just can't see looking at it differently. I just don't. As the governing body, I just don't understand how we can do that.
Well, the one thing that I wanted to make sure we did was to make our teachers somewhat competitive.
Yes,
Yeah.
because we're 14th out of 16, and that's
And
not
we're gonna be
going away.
14th out of 16.
That's
Yeah.
not going away.
It's not going away.
That's not going, we can talk about, we'll have to do a new pay, they're gonna wanna come to us with a new pay study, we're 14th out of 16. They're gonna wanna come to us, and the reality behind it is there is a fact there that they are 14th out of 16th, you have to be somewhat competitive. Is that the reason why teachers leave Caroline County schools? Completely, I don't believe that, but is it a contributing factor? It is, it absolutely is, especially when you start getting up into the higher end of the scale. It really is, there starts to become a major difference, a major gap between Caroline and surrounding counties.
I don't think
So
we lose teachers at the higher end though, Jeff. I don't think we're losing teachers up at the
But I
top.
think one thing we have
Yeah,
to look at
Yeah, you do.
is
I don't
because
think
they
so.
don't have the funds, or because they're not operating the funds or handling the funds in the wisest way necessary.
But they don't want to talk about that, Nancy.
Right, because we don't know, it's their decision.
Right, so it's their money, so I'm just,
we could have, you know, multiple principals and assistant principals.
I will tell you
We could
this,
have
the-
multiple this or that, and maybe they need to just look and see, but
What do we want? The other thing, what do we want from them? Because when Dr. Kilo was here, they never returned anything to us. And then we complained because they spent everything down to zero.
That's our
And
fault.
we were upset because, hey,
That's our
look,
fault.
they have zero money to return to us.
That's
Now
our
when they
fault.
return money to us, we're upset because they're hiding money or they have too much money. So, I mean, to be fair to them, which way do we want? Because I'll tell you something, if we keep on cutting this, and that's fine, we can go ahead and do that, but we're gonna get a zero return from them. And then we're gonna talk about they're hiding stuff in their budget even more.
No.
Because, yeah, that's what you're gonna go to.
No,
because
what I'm
when
gonna
they
do-
return zero to us, we're not
No.
gonna get anything back from them.
What I'm gonna do, Jeff, I'm gonna ask this board to give them what we believe to be a fair amount and ask them to operate, and I ain't saying one damn word about where they spend it. That's what they're asking us to do. But I'm gonna make sure what I give them, by God, you're gonna need it to spend.
You're
I
not
don't
gonna
have
say a
any-
word how they spend their money, so you're gonna give them that, and if they wanna put it all in central office.
That's up to them.
Okay.
That's up to them. That's what they're saying.
I mean-
They don't even wanna talk about
I mean, we have to be-
restroom. Where you gave them 25 million in the restroom, they said, we shouldn't even say a word about it. They said, all we should
I
do
don't
is
disagree,
either
and
give the
that's why
money and let it go.
I don't disagree with you on that. But at the same time, when you do a project, when you do a capital project, that's why any capital project needs to be done through the county.
No,
It needs to be done through
No.
us. From now on, it's.
but that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking
Well,
about
yeah, it is, 'cause you're
is
talking
giving
about
the schools, what we're talking about is creating a budget that is fair to the taxpayer, fair to schools, fair to public service, fair to our operations, fair to every department, is what we're talking about tonight.
Fair to the
Creating a
taxpayer.
budget that's fair.
We're looking at the big picture here, and we want a fire station. We want not one fire station, we want 2 fire stations. Everyone
And the
agrees with
taxpayers
utilities. And so now we're gonna start cutting operations because we've added a bunch of capital. The
We ain't
reality
cutting
behind it is, we can't punish people because we added capital. We made a decision as a board, I think most of them were unanimous votes, that we wanted 2 fire stations. One of them, we don't even get calls out of. We're building a volunteer fire station that we don't get calls out of. But okay, we need one there because down the road we're gonna need one. Now, we need one down in Carmel Church, and then how are we gonna, that doesn't even include firefighters.
That's not true, but.
That doesn't even include firefighters for it yet, so we're gonna fight over here, we're gonna cut operating,
We're
we've
not
got these
cutting,
capital costs.
where we're cutting operating. I'm asking you to tighten your belt.
You're,
That's what I'm asking you to do, tighten your belt. You got money left over, tighten your
you're
belt.
punishing
I'm
the
not punishing
operations side
anybody.
because we decided to do a bunch of capital.
Not me.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are.
No.
We
Then
made a decision
then cut out the
going forward.
capital projects then. Cut them out.
Okay, okay, go for it. Which fire station we cutting first?
Whichever one you want.
Well, my frustration is I can't earmark money. And that's what I said I wanted to do. I wanted to stand up and
Can't do
say, I wanted to make sure teachers got a raise.
I agree with you, Mr. Thomas, I agree with you.
And I don't know how I can do that
You can't.
because we've had this discussion before of they're separate entities. Our only job is to appropriate funds.
That's right.
And maybe that's what we need is another meeting to say, hey, we're gonna appropriate funds and we're gonna say there's X amount of money here and you can use that X amount of money for teacher raises, or we would like you to do that.
No, we can't even, they don't even want us to tell them, other than what's mandated by the state.
They've got a $40 million budget. I
That's
think
right.
we ought to be able to work.
$50 million.
$50 million.
Yeah, we ought to be able to work in,
They
of
don't-
this million, you can use this for raises.
The overarching feeling is that we're managing and governing their funds. And I don't have a problem with anyone telling me that they feel like we're overreaching in terms of governing, and that's fine. Then you take what I give you and you do what you need to do. That's my feeling. I don't even want to argue about it. I want to give you what I believe in my heart that you need. And hey, from there, it's on you. And I can dance with that. I can go to sleep at night and I can justify it to the taxpayer. What I will not do is constantly give you funds and have nothing and I have nothing to say about it, and I don't feel it's been appropriate. So I can just shut my mouth, do what I think is right, and be done with it, and say, hey, God bless you. But I told them, you will not like it, and that's what I stick to, that you will not like it.
Do we have another meeting with them before we finally adopt the
We
budget?
have to.
Oh, we don't vote
No.
tomorrow.
I think we-
No, we have a public hearing on the budget.
Public hearing.
We don't have to adopt the budget
Until
until
the
June,
27th.
until June 30th by law.
Technically, you gotta adopt the school part of that by May 1st.
Right.
Right, April 27th is our date.
And the school part is just appropriation
Yeah, you gotta tell the schools what they have, so they can come back with their budget, so you can.
by category, right? But we just have to say, here's X amount of dollars for
Right.
schools, which is.
That's what I'm saying.
That's 12 or 13 million, whatever that number is this year.
Exactly.
16.
Wow, so far behind. Okay.
12 or 13.
Yeah, it was
15.5.
it was a good number years
Well,
ago.
it used to be a good number.
All right, well,
And that's what they're saying.
That's the
Give them their
reality.
15.5, or give them their, if you give them 10, you're gonna give me 10, give me 10, you're gonna give me 15, give me 15, you're gonna give me 17, and get out of the way. That's what they're saying. And I can live with that. Maybe some of you guys can't, cause you're trying to make a statement about playing both sides against the middle. I'm saying, that's fine. I can give you what we can afford, and that's all I got. I don't have a problem with that. You just heard from Davenport. You heard the report, so you make the decision. I'm one vote, but I'm telling you how I feel. Give them the money, get out of the way.
I mean, that's what, why we can't fight it this close to budget time. We
Right.
can't change anything after all these years, other than the amount of money we're giving them.
Well, I think tomorrow you'll hear fully fund the schools, which is another 2.8 million.
And that ain't happening, so I can listen, Mr. Cully, I can listen to it till 3 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Wait,
It won't change my opinion.
Say that again?
2.8 million. They
Say that
Yeah,
again?
that's how much the reduction
to
is
fully funded.
from their request, and that's changed probably a little bit due to the fact that, but yeah, they're requesting that somewhere in there 49 million, and I've got them at 46.
I think it's a request is in the pink, Mr. Cully. You just have to go
Yeah,
back there.
that's right, it was in the.
There's 49 million, something right there in the pink, right in the middle.
Yeah,
Go back to your left,
Yeah, that's part of
right there, Department 40.
all of them. And that's operating fund, then it moves to textbook fund, and then special
So I'm
special
just,
funds, and that's another thing we haven't really talked about, but their special funds are up. They've got this big grant that they never had before of 2.8 million, so their special funds are going from the adopted budget of 2,010,000 to 5,005,980.
What does special funds mean?
Well, that's Title I, Title II,
Yeah, it's like
Title IV.
When they got grants from the.
It's all grants, that's what this, they'll have to ask the school.
Does any of that go to salaries?
No.
no,
That's all,
yeah,
like, I don't know.
That's all.
I'm not sure.
Like a-
Yeah, some Title I does it.
But still, that gives.
It's operate the
them-
program,
that gives
Title
them
I,
close to
whatever.
what they wanted it
Yeah, it
to
should.
increase therein.
But all I'm saying again is,
They
They
went
don't
from
want you to-
2 million
they
to 5 million in special funds?
they don't want you to look at that. They don't want you to look, they just want you to give them the money.
Yes, their
Tell them what you're
total-
gonna give them and get out of the way.
Yeah, their total budget adopted was 49, this is school food, special funds, textbook fund, operating funds, 49,581,906.
And a lot of that money is earmarked.
And it's.
I know.
The title, that money, grant money is earmarked. We're not talking,
That money is earmarked money for
I'm
something.
not talking about, see,
Some of that goes to salaries.
No, I don't think it does.
very little, I won't mark, but anyway, Jeff, reality of it is, if it, let's say it does, let's say someone goes to salary.
It
We're
doesn't.
still beating the dead, I said, it doesn't matter what it goes to. What they're telling, you guys are not listening, what they want us to do is give them the money that we're going to give them, shut your mouth and get out of the way. So our decision is to give them the money that we want to appropriate to them, shut up and get out of the way. Let's not talk about what they're gonna get from whomever. I think you guys know, but you guys been around long enough looking at budgets. You ought to know what can and can't be done. And I'm
So Jeff,
for
you
that.
think if their insurance goes up next year 600,000, you're gonna tell me that you think they're gonna say they've got the 600,000 from the year before?
No, I mean, if they say that their insurance goes up 600,000, then next year you don't cover it, because they have the insurance savings. Because they have,
You care about
they should be putting that
You care
aside.
about that? No, but the
But I don't think they can,
I think they should use the 600,000 for raises. Can you tell them? Yeah, I can tell them.
But that'd be a one time.
Do they have to listen? No.
Had to fill it in the next year, give it all.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to tell them.
Yeah, they ain't gonna listen.
That's all I would like.
I ain't wasting my
opportunity to
breath.
say that.
I ain't wasting my breath.
to me.
You know, I love my kids and really admire anybody that wants to go into education. But I also have to remember that we have a little over 4,000 students in a county that's, well, we haven't gotten our new census in yet, I don't think, but say 40,000, that's 10%. Even if I add the parents, that's 30% of our population. We have 70% of our population that we still have to take care of, that have needs. We have transportation issues, we have food issues for our elderly, you know, we have fire rescue, sheriff, construction. It can't be,
639.
we can't give it all in one spot. We have to be fair to everybody, and this is fair, this is meeting the mandate.
So the
We have
800,000, you're okay with the
it
800,000? You're okay with the 800,000?
The
Mr.
sewer,
College budget, yes.
make the new sewer districts.
But I'm not,
630.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they did my district.
Yes.
1.6.
Yes.
7.
But I think we only
That's
gave
what I said, we
1.7.
take
We
it.
gave 1.3, but 1.7's fine.
Then we'd be okay. Be okay, because we'd have
Put
customers.
that back.
We'd be in great
I'm not
shape.
gonna talk over us building them.
So you're okay with the 800,000 from the budget?
If we did that.
That's what Mr. Colley budgeted, it's the 800,000.
Yeah, I'm not going up anymore.
No, I'm
We
not
don't have- we
asking,
don't
I'm
have
just
any
saying, I'm
choice.
not asking, I'm just saying,
We
that's what's
don't
in the
have any
budget.
choice. It's
That's what Mr.
mandated.
Colley, that's what Mr. Colley, I'm fine with what Mr. Colley did.
I mean, that's mandated, let's do it.
It's not
That's
mandated.
not mandated. What's the number?
No, 470,000 is mandated, Nancy.
Let me type that in, so.
That's $470,888 is mandated, is that right, Ms. Smith?
70.
870,
470-870.
right, that's what's mandated. But we wanna give the
We want to.
non-SOQ folks 5% as well. So our money gets up to the 806, the difference, or the 300,000 gets us up to the 5% for all the other employees.
335,451 is not required, but it should assure that everybody gets 5%.
5%.
There's no guarantee, because when you give it to them, they can do what they want with it, but in that you were providing the money there to make sure that the match is done and everybody gets 5%, I would think they would do that, but there's no guarantee.
They can do it.
All we've got to put
It's
in is
just that number
470,
600,
807.
So, but that would be only the that would only be for the SOP position.
Right, that's just the
Right.
match for the, it would not,
For the
not be
SRP.
drivers, and cafeteria workers, and other workers, and some teachers, and aides, paraprofessionals, all those folks that are not mandated by the state.
So it doesn't matter if they have any money to
I'd rather
help.
do that, and let them deal with how they're gonna pay for their new mandated positions.
What's that? You'd rather just give them 407 or take it at 409?
I'm okay with giving them the 800, as long as I get my 1.3 back,
1.7.
All right, so let's go to the next item then. Public safety plan, 647.
We don't get them.
And that's the plan that we talked about
That
at the
plan
meeting.
presented to the board, it's basically a whole new scale, and part of the reason for the whole new scale is currently deputies are already in this pay plan with the county. So if a deputy's a grade, somebody got the grade number, I don't know what it is, but 14, that could be other people that are regular county employees, so you can't just artificially change that grade, or you'd be giving other people on that grade the same increase. That are not, so that's why we came up with a public safety pay plan, and we came up with steps for longevity to try to build in a career ladder for people to stay, so they would see where they're going, versus just our current pay plans, a start, and a mid, and a max, but you know, it's only, you gotta be here 15 years, and if you're not at the mid, you get put at the mid, but then no guarantee then when you'll move off the mid years later. So it's, and most other departments are now going to that same step system. So that's why we created the public safety pay plan.
Which I told you I disagree, I'll just speak up first, which I disagreed with, because we just did a pay study in 2018, and we made the adjustment, and we talked about trying to get our road deputies and sergeants, and of course it creates compression. I know all that and listen to all that, but you cannot justify, to me, using a different principle in terms of, and not seeing principles, I mean how you do things. If you give public safety and you want to increase them to an average of what's being paid in the district, then why can't you give teachers that? Why don't you do the same for teachers? I think you're creating two separate, and you say, well, one's bigger than the other. No, it's the principle of the thing. If you're going to do for one, then you should do for the other. That's my feeling. As much as, you know, you hear me clamoring about giving money, teachers deserve raises, and Mr. Black thinks they should be paid as much as in California, and that's up to him. But I just think we went about the public safety pay plan absolutely different, contrary to what I thought we should do. And I'll be quiet.
Well, I would like to see, because I know the sheriff came to us on multiple occasions and said he can't hire people because his starting salary is too low.
And he's losing people further up too.
Yeah, okay. So he said he couldn't hire people because the starting salary is too low. And what I would like to see is a number that helps his starting salary. I know that's not 647 because that's the whole thing, but I would like to know what that number is as we figure out
They gave it to us in that
where
pay
we
stub.
go.
They gave it to us in the pay stub.
It was all there.
It was all there.
Okay, well, what is it now?
In the new pay plan.
In the new pay plan, it was all there.
What is it now? Because if it's 10 deputies at starting, what's the difference in the starting salary?
6,000 now.
About 6,000.
6,000. It's 46 something is what they're asking. It was.
Which still leaves us at the bottom of we're not even going to 14th of like the schools, or 14th of 16th. We're still at the bottom. We're not asking to move up. We're just trying to get closer to the bottom.
But I mean, we're
50
biting
in the
all
nation.
these full apples. Can I just take a piece of the apple first? Just so I can know what a piece of the apple is? How much is it just to increase the starting salary of all of what's open?
So you want just the vacant position?
So you're gonna pay them more than the people that already work?
Yeah.
I'm just asking, how much is it to increase the starting salary? Because that's what he said was the problem at first.
Well, he did. He wanted $8,000 for everybody in the department.
Okay, one more time for those in the back. He said, the sheriff, repeatedly that he couldn't hire people because our starting salary was too low.
Correct.
Okay, that's all
I know, but
I'm just
that wasn't
listening to.
that wasn't all he said. He said, well, then he followed it up, but I want $8,000 per employee.
Can I just do this sequentially, please, for me? Answer that one question, and then I'll move to the next question. How much is that number?
I'm not gonna do a lot of math on that.
For the vacant positions only, it would be $60,000,
Total.
about $60,000. But then you would have just about almost every deputy sheriff that has currently been employed with the county, less than what those that are starting.
Okay, that's the compression issue we're talking about.
That's correct.
Okay, but I needed to know, because if I say, go hire 10 people or whatever, here's that $60,000, whatever that number is, and he goes out and can't hire 10 people right now, that's another story, right?
Right.
So then I have to address compression for the second part of what he said, is he's losing people because of whatever. So, okay. All right. I have the answer that I wanted.
So I guess the real question then is there, if we're okay with the increase of 8 cents in the tax rate, because that's what makes up all of the individual pieces we're talking about, 1 through 11, then do we need to go through these and say, you're okay with all of this, with 8% tax increase?
Most of it, a lot of it is capital projects too, yeah, and I am.
There's another factor though.
Yeah,
Well, there's a whole bunch, but just on the 8 cents. Because the 8 cents uses how much out of the fund balance? Was that 700,000 or 900,000?
No, I thought it was more than that.
It's 500,000.
No, it's 700 and some thousand.
Yeah,
That's another 3 cents,
but see,
2.5 cents.
see, that's where the balance came in.
Right.
If you have an 8 cent increase, we use 700,000 out of fund balance. If you have a 4 cent increase,
You need,
I think we used $1 million out of the fund balance, or $1.2 million or something like that. If you have no increase, we're using $3 million out of the fund balance.
Which is exactly what we can't do, because.
We know we're not gonna do 0 and use 3 million. I'm just saying what those numbers were the last time we were in this room talking about the fund balance and its effect.
Even if you do, let me just put it this way, even if we do the 8 cents, okay, even if we do the 8 cents, here's the problem. If you cut it to 5 cents and you start cutting, you don't think the school's gonna come back next year, you don't think the sheriff's gonna come back next year, number one. Number two, and we do have to plan, because we can talk about hypotheticals all day long, that's not a hypothetical, that's a reality. The reality is, yes they are, come on. The reality, there's still 14 out of 16. The reality is the sheriff's department is still at the bottom, okay? And yes, I as far as teachers know, I don't know personally teachers that have left. I do know, I mean, as far as people leaving Caroline to go to other jurisdictions as far as deputies is concerned, because they're getting hired at a much higher rate. And that doesn't even put us at, as Mr. Cully said, we're still in last place, correct?
Yes.
Yes, even with this raise for the deputies, we're still in last place.
Right at or a few dollars within King George.
And then next year, I mean,
And they're probably going up this budget year.
there were certain supervisors
They
that
probably are.
there were certain supervisors that we have to have a fire station down in Carmel Church. We have to have a fire station down in Carmel Church. Well,
I
okay,
said,
wonderful.
I raised my hand.
Wonderful,
I don't
okay,
think-
then,
I don't
but then
think
the
it's
reality
certain.
behind
I
it
thought
is,
it was unanimous.
a fire station without, firefighters is kind of useless. And that's not even in this budget.
We're going,
So
that's
you
right.
cut it to, 5 cents, 4 cents, whatever. We haven't done a tax increase since what, 2013, Mr. Cully? A real tax increase, not the one that I'm talking about.
We went up a penny, but we went down a penny the year before.
But you have
So,
no
so you're
surplus to pay
now
4
now
million
next
for
year,
Lady Smith
we're
Road.
magically gonna get 9 firefighters out of the blue.
But you had enough money in surplus to
Yeah,
pay
nine's not
4
gonna be
million
enough.
for Lady Smith
So
Road.
if you don't
So
do
the taxpayer
if
did
you
their
don't do the
part.
8 cents, if you don't do the 8 cents, I mean, next year, how are you gonna get your firefighters?
How'd you get enough money to pay for Lady Smith Road out of the
Lady
uncovered
Smith Road is
balance?
a one-time.
I'm just asking you a question. How did you get
Road
the?
is a
Wait a minute,
one-time project.
but wait a minute, we're also
I'm
not
just saying.
talking to the Commission of Revenue. Personal property, there are a whole lot of factors that are going on that we're not talking about. I mean, personal property, people are buying new vehicles. Vehicles are getting more expensive. The more expensive they get, the higher personal property. So a lot of what we saw was in personal property, and we just saw a real estate reassessment that went up significantly. Now, we're gonna reduce that rate. I'm not saying that's the well to go to, but we've got sales tax going up. 639 is a bet on a business district that's gonna bring us real dollars.
No,
So, in the reality of all this, that we have to a little bit gamble on 639 is gonna bring revenue in the next 18 months.
no, Jeff.
Because if it doesn't, then all the money, I'm back to what Floyd said, Carmel Church pays so much money a year in taxes and real estate and other stuff. So we have to say the same thing about the 639 road project. If you go up 5-6 cents now, you've got to bet that you're gonna get the remainder of that coming out of 639.
Jeff, what I'm saying is, this is what I'm saying. We said we haven't gone up in taxes since,
2013,
2013.
and that was
That's,
because of
wait a minute, that's because we didn't need to, because we had a surplus in our revenue, and that's how you got, wait a minute, no, I got nothing. And that means that the taxpayers in the county were doing their fair share. That's what that means. When you have enough money to run the county, that means the taxpayers are paying their fair share, and oh, guess what? We had a little bit left, so we put it aside to pay for a road project that we hope would bring additional revenue. That doesn't mean that the taxpayers weren't paying their fair share.
the low tax rate for.
Is that correct?
The low tax rate for years, the low tax rate in this county, when Chief Loftus came in, we had fire trucks that we were putting together with duct tape. Okay, so you can say what you want, but the.
We had a surplus. We had a surplus.
And you didn't have adequate, I mean.
We had a surplus.
Chief Loftus has had to do since he's come in.
We had a surplus, Jeff.
You
That's
can have a
not,
surplus and not spend.
then we should have spent it
People
on.
need services. When I call
No,
911,
no,
I expect them to show up.
That's
I
not in the
expect 911 to
issue.
show up, and I expect the fire truck to work.
That's poor management. If you put
Poor
money,
management?
if you put money in the bank,
You got a
and you don't
fire
fix your
truck that's
roof,
30 years
and
old,
your,
it's not
and
gonna
your,
work, it's
and
poor
your roof of
management?
your house,
No, because I have a
collapses,
surplus, because I'm not
that's
paying any
poor
money for a
management.
fire truck. No, it's not poor management.
That's poor
It's
management.
called, I need an updated fire truck.
No,
Because when people
that's
call
poor
911, they need it to be there.
that's poor management.
I've never heard someone say when they call 911, yeah, can you tell me about my tax rate? Someone's having a heart attack.
If you have a surplus.
I mean, we
you
voted
need
against an
something,
emergency entrance going to
and
Lake
you don't
Landor, for
spend
God's
it,
sakes,
that's
$30,000. I mean, at some point, a government, I understand, at some point, a government's gotta spend a little bit of money. At some point, and we haven't done it in 8 years. And you can hear from the schools, you can hear from the schools, you can hear from Mr. Cully about public safety. This doesn't even bring us to where we need to be,
we haven't spent
because
money.
we haven't done it in 8 years.
We haven't done what? We haven't done what?
A tax increase in 8 years.
But yet we had a surplus.
We pulled from the.
I'm just,
fund
but
balance.
that's what I'm saying is,
Yeah,
Right.
totally.
You've been pulling from fund balance.
We have.
But we pulled from
some.
the fund balance because we paid cash for something we were supposed to finance. That's why.
If
But
you,
wait a minute.
no, don't go, because now, no.
That was-
Don't go there, Floyd,
The
because
original-
you're
the original
spending
plan was
money,
to-
you wanna pay debt service on
Order,
something
okay,
that we
okay.
wouldn't have anything to
That was
pay
a-
with.
The
That
original
was a
plan
decision we
was to
made.
finance it.
But then let's not go backwards.
That's what I'm
Let's
saying.
not
That was the
go,
original
I'm not
plan.
gonna stop
Wait a
Reggie till we
minute,
stop
right.
going backwards.
Come on, guys.
That was the
wait a minute.
original plan.
Wait a minute,
It's-
I'm not
sense in changing the original stuff.
I'm not arguing, I'm not debating whether we should have financed or not financed. What I'm debating is the fact that the taxpayers in the county have been doing their share, and we had a surplus. That's what I'm debating right now. So now we say, because we haven't raised taxes, wait a minute, let me finish, and I'll let you come back, Mr. Black. Because we didn't raise taxes and continue to build the surplus that we're here now. No, the taxpayers have done their, you look, it's in the book. They've done their share. We did have a surplus. We chose as the board to spend that money. So those decisions we made for good reason in terms of helping the county move forward. Not debating whether it should have been financed or should have been. We made that decision,
Okay.
okay? But don't say we didn't raise taxes or the taxpayers haven't done their job and we had a surplus of money. You can't say that.
Mr. Chair,
Am I correct? Yes, Ms. Long.
I'm gonna disagree in that we are all taxpayers.
Right.
We have all paid what we needed to do, but as a taxpayer, I expect services. So if we had to spend money to encourage, commercial development, if we had to pay money for fire trucks and rescue squads, if we have to take care of our employees by giving them a raise so that we continue to have a good staff, I have to be expected to pay for that. And because of good management, we have not had to do that
No, because the
for
taxpayer.
the past years, because I have paid my taxes and so have you.
Right.
However, we need fire and rescue, we need a new station, we need trucks, we need employees to fill those, that's expensive. Prices have gone up, prices are gonna continue to go up. We cannot expect our employees to work for the same thing 3 and 4 years in a row. So eventually that surplus is going to thin out to nothing, and we need to
That's-
raise traffic.
and that's right.
People want to call 911 and have somebody on the other end.
And Nancy, you're 1,000% right. And I agree with you that we have to spend money. But all I'm saying is, don't go back to 2013 and 14 and 15 and 16, when we did have a surplus, and say that the taxpayers haven't done their job.
No one's ever saying the taxpayers.
That's what you're saying. Oh, yeah.
No,
Okay, what-
we did not
listen,
raise taxes.
Yeah, but don't say, well, we haven't raised taxes and we
We
did, no,
haven't
no, no,
raised
no.
taxes in years.
Yes, sir.
That
We
no-
had, we had
That's
the
nothing
need
to do,
to.
that has nothing to do with the
It
taxpayers
does.
not doing their job.
Yes, it does.
Mr.
No,
Cullen,
no, it doesn't.
To me,
Mr.
it
Cullen,
does.
could you or Mr. Smith get us a ratio on the number of sales of houses that are behind in their real estate taxes? I'm sure the Commissioner of Revenue or the Treasurer has
Treasurer
that.
know who's behind the tax. Yeah,
I'd just like to see that percentage, because it's,
Well, our tax collection's way up, so it can't be but so many.
We're doing a good job
Again.
with tax collection.
I'm sequential. If I can get some kind of number like that to see if it's a increasing scale or decreasing scale. A lot of us, or a lot of people, I'm not gonna include myself in that, are able to take care of whatever the tax rate is, whether it's 69 or 77 and not feel anything. A lot of folks in our districts, may not be a majority in each district, more than some in different districts, are struggling to make that payment. So if you could just get us like a percentage to see if that number is going up or down, I think that would be a big help, especially this year, because a lot of people are, lost revenue.
We can use that to comparison in the capper, there's a percentage of levy and what the outstanding delinquent taxes were.
That's in the
At the
CAFR?
end of, yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
At the end of fiscal year 2020, the percentage of levy was 98.54.
That's
And
pretty good.
so we had 5.5 million that was done.
Okay, in
So
2020.
now get where we are now.
Okay.
Can be better.
That'd be great.
You
'cause
said
I think
5 million is due?
Page 182, table 10.
And we've been doing pretty well with our collections
Yes.
past.
Because the numbers have gone up
Yes.
over the last 3 years consistently. We have less delinquent taxes over the last 5 than we've had previous to that. Because our two-year and 3-year back tax line items have actually gone down.
But we hired a firm,
Yeah, to collect, I
Did
remember.
that one.
Right.
Rapper, so that's helped. We always had, selling personal, real estate, but now we're going after personal property too with that firm,
I think get 98% is what you budget. Is that the number?
somewhere in that.
98?
Which that firm has been very helpful.
Yeah, agree.
Um,
That's one thing we do agree on.
Mr. Thomas, I agree with you, and I think every single supervisor here, whether some want to believe that's not true, when you do a tax increase, yes, you are putting a burden on the citizens. And I agree with you, yeah, there is a burden to people, every single district has poverty. And I think if, a couple of years ago, Ms. Steed gave out when Jeff was on the Social Services Board, there was a map that was given out as the people that were providing services, where social services were providing services, just pinpointed a map. And the highest concentration was where the highest concentration of population was. The highest concentration of those services for social services was in Western Carolina, Madison District, and that's because that's where the population was. It was shocking to me.
Percentage.
Percent-wise, as far as,
No.
that's where most of the service.
Volume-wise.
Volume-wise.
Volume.
Percentage is another story.
Right, volume-wise,
I'm not gonna be that
was
secretary.
it was in the western side of the county, so that was shocking. So when Mr. Forehand or myself, where we have the major subdivisions, when we go for a tax increase, we have to understand that as well. I think my concern is this, is like in whatever we have for service, whether it be from a private entity, an electric bill, a trash bill, water, whatever bill you have, a water bill, whatever bill you have, and if you can go back to those bills, go back to 2013 and see what your cost was for cable or your cost was for internet. And look what it is today, and what is the percent that has gone up. Now they usually do gradual ones, your cable bill might go up if you have cable, or your internet bill might go up $5 a year. So over,
$5 a month.
what's that?
$5
$5 a month, yeah, $5 a month.
$10 a month.
But yeah, $10 a month, right, exactly, over a period of, 10 years. So for us, the government side, what we haven't done, this is significant, I understand that. But what we haven't done is we haven't done that at all. We haven't done what the electric company has done and what the water company has done, or whatever company, trash service, company has done. We just haven't done that. And we have things that we have to pay for. And I know Mr. Underwood said I'm trying to pay teachers like California. That's just not true. I mean, the reality behind it is, in the end of the day, even if we do this 5%, there's still going to be 14th out of 16. And yet, can I do more? I wish I could. The reality is, I can't go higher than that. But I think we have to recognize, yes, we do have our limits, but we also have to recognize that we do have to spend some money, and we do have things that we need to spend money on.
I think you have just hit on the point. First of all, by saying you agree with me, and then by saying different points, I'm quite serious. You have hit on the essential point of what governing is all about. We agree in that there are things to do. We agree in that point. Mm-hmm. Now, we have to somehow agree, or a majority agree, on how we get to that point, mm-hmm. which is the essential effort of government.
Right.
I believe, my opinion, and what I'm gonna fight for is, we not do 8 cents now. We do maybe half of that and do something again next year, because we'll have an opportunity to hopefully have folks recover from whatever they lost from this particular year.
And I understand that thinking. My concern is, if I'm going to continuously hit you with, whether it be 4 cents or 8 cents, 8 cents is definitely more significant than 4 cents. However, when I'm looking at a 4 cent tax increase is a large one. Either if it's 4 or 8, it's still large. I mean, when you start talking 1 cent, maybe 2 cents, I don't think it's significant, but when you start going 4 cents, that's significant. If we were talking about 4 cents right now, we've had 4 cents in budget talks where we were like, oh my God, we can't do 4 cents. We've had years where 4 cents, we thought, my 4 cents was outrageous. So I guess my point is, to me, I'd rather do it now, just get that thing, and then hopefully we don't have to do it next year, because we're gonna start to see that growth that Mr. Seeley was talking about with the Lady Smith Road project. And if we do it now, if we do an 8 cents, I don't wanna have to do a tax increase again next year.
Okay.
So if we do the 8 cents now, to me, get it out of the way, and then that way we have several years where we don't have to do them.
I actually had a long conversation with the guy who's in charge of the development that's coming there last Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not get too excited about when it's gonna come right away, okay? We do have some other opportunities that will help us. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to focus on those. But the reality is, if you're looking at an 8 cent increase, you're talking about $200 or $300 a year for folks, right?
It depends on the value of your house.
What's the average house in the county? 217.
250.
No, 217.
The average,
That came from the Virginia, what's his name?
well, I've got the, on, what the reports we get from FAR every,
Zillow or
the
whoever
reports
says
we're getting
that.
from FAR is that it's 250.
We'll take whatever number you have.
So if your home value is 200,000, okay, or 240,000, which is, I would say, significant. I mean, most of them, you're looking at $188 a year.
171, I thought.
What's that?
171, wasn't it?
It
You're
was,
saying,
if it was,
Say 180 is close enough.
wait, you're saying 240 is what you're saying is the
if
average now?
your value is because of reassessment, if you're, there it is right there, he's got it.
Yes, it's
So
spreadsheet you get.
most people in the 240 range would be going up $188 a year. So yeah, you're talking $15 a month.
Oh, is that it at the bottom?
Yes. Make it a little bit smaller.
Make it too small with the numbers on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can go back up higher.
see if I can get the 95. How's that?
You're looking at
Scroll up.
$15.60 a month. $15.70.
Yeah, but.
See, that's, you know, and if your house is about, I mean, the other way to think about this is in terms of, if you go to the south of us, and I'm not trying to justify being this huge tax government, I'm not. But what I'm saying is, like, you go to Spotsylvania, they're arguing about between 82 and 85 right now. That's what their board of supervisors are arguing about, right? Well, the average home, and Mr. Underwood and I, we had this discussion before, the average home in Spotsylvania is probably about $100,000. If you look at the FAR report, what Spotsylvania homes are selling more, and their multiplier is also more. So your tax rate in Spotsylvania is, we talk about bringing businesses in, and Spotsylvania has way more business than we do, right? But their tax rate and their average salary cost of home is much higher. Then you go to our south in Hanover, it's the same thing. Their multiplier is higher, and the average value of their home is higher.
But their
So even
incomes
when
are
we
higher,
go to
Jeff.
77, our average of our home is still less than Spotsylvania and Hanover, which we're on the 95 corridor, so, and we're growing. And our multiplier is still lower at the 77, significantly lower.
But the incomes are higher.
Now, they
You
also
gotta
have,
get into- you gotta take
There's
into-
poverty
wait a
there
minute,
too.
wait,
There's
wait,
poverty
wait,
in
but
they
you
also
have to
have
take
5 or
into
6
account-
times the schools we
Right,
have.
wait a minute.
They have 5 or 6 times the fire stations we have.
Well, we talk about business growth.
They have 5 or 6 times the business we do.
Right.
Drive down Route 1 and
If we had the same revenue streams coming from business and real estate tax and property tax, your sales tax, if our revenue streams were equal in terms of spending, then I would agree with your premise in terms of the cost, but they're not. Our tax base is not the same as King George. Our tax base is not the same as Spotsylvania. Our tax base is, we are an outlier, and that's unfortunate because we're stuck in the middle of Hanover. Tax base is different because they do have the businesses that generate the income. Yes, there is a need, but there is also a point of called no return. Now you and I don't agree in terms of where that point of no return is, but we look at it from a spending point of view, and that's how I kind of look at it. What is the point of no return from a spending point of view? Yes, a teacher makes more. Yes, a deputy makes more in a place that has more money. But if I don't have the money, I don't care what they do. I can't pay it. And that's what I'm saying. It's not about deserving. It's not about any of those factors. It's not about wanting to have the shiniest fire truck. It's not about that. It's not about being able to have all those services as best we can. What is it that Caroline County can afford? You believe Caroline County can easily afford
I
an
don't say
8.
easily.
No, I'm just saying, can afford an 8-cent tax increase and it won't have an effect. I just happen to disagree because of our tax base. I just happen to disagree,
Well, let me put it this
but
way.
not deserve.
Right, there's a statement that you made about the shiniest, whatever,
Fire truck.
It's not about the shiniest fire truck. I don't think we have the shiniest fire trucks. It's actually having the firefighters and EMTs to be able to show up when someone's having a heart attack.
That was only hypothetical.
And that's what we're having right now. Or when someone calls, there's a domestic violence dispute and Sheriff Lipa is down 10, 15 deputies, then we've got a problem when we can't cover that. So it's not about having a shiny, it's about being able to cover the basic services that we're not able to cover right now unless we give them a significant, because we're losing deputies because of pay.
Sometimes less money causes you to look deeper at your expenditures. Sometimes it does, and this, all I'm saying is sometimes we have to take a look at our expenditures. And that's all I'm saying. When I say the shiniest fire truck, what I'm saying is because Hanover has brand new car, doesn't mean that we need a car, we need something that's functional. That's what we need. We need functionality. And that's what I'm saying when I say the shiniest. So, not that we don't need, but we may have to deal another year, or we may have to look at things a little differently because we don't have the funds. Your refrigerator breaks in your home and you don't have money. You gotta look for alternatives. You need a refrigerator, but if you don't have the revenue, then what do? We're not there yet. I don't believe that the county is in that position yet in terms of where we are in terms of governing. And I listened to Mr. Courtney very carefully, and I agree with him in terms of governing and how things should run. And I just think that we really have to take a closer look. I really do, and that's just my position. I could be 100% wrong, but I don't think I am. I just think that, again, that the way we're looking at it.
In my opinion, we've taken a close look for 7 or 8 years, and it's unfortunately everything is kind of hitting us all at once, and I think we're not the only jurisdiction facing that. But I think the one thing that I got out of what Mr. Mr. Rogers said is if we keep on dipping into our fund balance to pay for stuff, we're gonna lose that bond rating that we're so proud of. And if we lose that bond rating, we're gonna make it difficult for this board and future boards, and we're gonna make it more expensive.
I agree with that.
And so, I mean, he didn't come out and say it, but my interpretation was if you don't get the revenue, you've got some huge debt.
Well, that was his number one.
And we committed, yes.
I think that's what he said.
So to me, I don't know how unless you make significant cuts to some of the projects that we all agree to, I don't see how you go with anything but 8 cents.
Speaking of cuts, in the first sheet of all the departments that Mr. Cully had up earlier, can you go back to him? Is there anything, looking at those lines, that anybody
The 11
is
increase
concerned
areas.
about?
I mean, 11 increases, right? 11 areas of increase. Yeah.
The one, Mr. Chair, I was, had spoken to Mr. Cully about, and is the park and recs increase. And I know that's not a lot, but one of the I asked why the increase, and one of the increases, and I am thrilled with the idea and the heart of it, I just don't think it's a wise move for us at this time, was money to start a after-school daycare type of thing here, run by Park and Recs. That was what, 40,000, 20, something like that?
So the summer camp program is 20,000?
No, not the summer camp.
No, it's a new program he wants to
The
run.
new program that he wants to run. I just didn't know if we needed to start that this year. Plus, I was concerned, you know, I'm hoping once vaccines are done and we start to open up with maybe some of the other groups and businesses, maybe somebody has started new after-school business, pre and after-school business. Don't like competing against possible. Just 20,000, okay, it was less than I thought. But still, that's 20,000 we could cut out. I think there was 7,000 increase in e-books.
Another couple pennies.
No, he says it's revenue neutral.
But that's
He's
an
gonna collect 20,000.
Yeah, we could collect 20.
Yeah, it's not a cost
You gotta,
thing.
you gotta come up somewhere else.
They're paying for it.
And he's including cleaning and use of the building and also revenue in the building.
No,
and that type of
The
thing.
only thing he has in there is the part-time.
It's been in there.
personnel.
I just feel funny competing against, maybe churches wanna do something, or business wants to open, maybe a daycare center over in Fort Lane Smith at Fredericksburg wants to start a business here. That's a little something we could, put off. But going through, there was, I did not see a lot of, I don't wanna say luxury items, but I didn't see a lot of fluff in the budget at all. And I think we could, work on one thing that we have talked about doing to help get some money, but we cannot go into the fund balance, and according to best estimates, to not go into the fund balance, we have to go to 76 at least.
They're
So,
going in.
He's going in at 77.
We need seven, I think we need 79 not to go in.
Mrs. Baum is looking at, the fund balance as the, what we will be putting into the budget for fiscal year 21-22, and what the increase in the collectible amount for the June tax
Right.
base will be. So that nets to a positive 200,000. But we would still be reporting the need for some fund balance in our budget.
The lower, basically, the lower you set the tax rate as you increase, so you increase it 4 cents instead of the 8, it's less of that one-time bump you get, which is gonna then take us, actually, the fund balance down. But yeah, even at 8 cents, there's a fund balance, balance and component to the
Component
budget.
from fund balance.
So every penny you go down is 300,000 negative to that, and so you eventually cross over where you're actually taking money from the fund balance out of what you would have made in the one-time June collection.
So our, the number for $0 out of the fund balance, Mr. Cully, is what? In terms of
11 cents.
11 cents.
Well, that ain't happening.
Well, I know, that's why I never proposed that.
a penny tax is how much?
316,000.
316,892, 893.
Well,
And we are at about 8.1 just for, we're at 8.1 just for the new spending in the budget. But there's also, in the revenue side of the 21 budget, we had $955,800 coming from detention center. And I'm hoping we're not gonna need, because remember, we're still in 21. But I took that out, and lowered that down. So that's another 3 cents. So that's where you get 8.1 and 3 cents, 11.1 to be 100% balanced. And we know we're not gonna get there, and we will have some cushion from the detention center. Still, we still have our average 224, a month there. So we're still making that.
And that contract's only good for
Another
2 more
year,
years.
2 more years, yeah. So not gonna last
24,
forever.
So we're already in the one time.
Go 23, into 23.
Right.
Yeah, we have a little bit more, but,
I'm not sure that's gonna be
But
continued.
there's no doubt that's gonna continue.
I don't know, I don't know that that's gonna continue.
No, I don't.
Somewhere.
I think opposite. I think I have doubts that it will continue.
I don't know, I don't, it's a government one, we're not a private one, that makes some difference.
Yeah.
They don't like the private ones much, they've been trying to wean themselves off of private prisons and private detention centers for a number of years, the federal government, so we have a shot. But I'm not making any promises, that's why I'm trying to wean us off of that
So we
money.
need 11 cents to not go into the fund balance, 10 cents.
How much did you, last year we went into the fund balance?
1.7.
1.7. How much of the fund balance did you use to balance the budget?
Oh, more than that, what, 3 something, it was a big number.
And I will also add, the credit rating agency, they actually look at what we actually go into the fund balance and what we budget.
Right, right. But my point is, and again, see, that's my point. Again, it's very sequential for me. If we use 3 million to balance the budget, but we ended up in what we think is a bad year and end up using 1.7 of that, that's like $1.8 million swing because some other things happened, like we didn't spend more.
We didn't spend everywhere 100%, and revenues were
And
stronger.
revenue came up again.
Revenues were stronger than we.
Now, your job is not to predict revenues coming up at all. Your job is never to do that because you have to be conservative to balance the
Yeah,
budget.
I mean, I predict them up, but I don't try to go over where I think.
You
they're
can't,
gonna
and you
be.
can't, you can't really add in that to the budget.
For sure.
But based on that same trend, the odds are if we budget to use $1 million out of the fund balance, we'll probably come up even and not use anything.
I think we would be, that's why I think at the 8 cents, where we're budgeting 752 or something, we're good. Maybe at 7 cents, we'll be okay, but if you start getting down in 6 and 5 and 4, I think you're gonna use more out of the fund balance than we really wanna use, given what we've been told by the rate names. And we know they get our stuff every year. They have ever since we got rated, they've gotten our stuff. Not just when we went back out to the market this year. They look every year.
Do you know what it was the year before?
How much we took out to come out?
Yeah.
About 800, now it's 900,000.
No, what was the budget number?
More than that, 2.4, something, it's about the same. But we spent about half.
We're chewing further and further into it.
No, my point is,
The percent that we spent.
yeah, the point is he's budgeting $2 million to come out of the fund balance. And the end result is 1 million.
It's 1 million.
He budgeted $3 million to come out of the fund balance, and the end result is 1.7. Somewhere in there, there's a consistent trend of almost $1 million. Not that we guarantee it's gonna be there, but that's just the trend line.
But what he's saying is 7 cents is the minimum based on what he's seeing as the trend.
Based on what he thinks is the trend line right now.
If you use that trend line, then 7 cents is where you've got to be, you're gonna end up further into the fund balance than we were last year.
Not quite 7, I think 6.
Just want you to be careful, because it's not reversible once we do it and it comes out. They look at it and there's no going back fixing it if they downgrade it.
That's the last thing we want.
And that's when you gotta decide, is it worth that penny one way or the other, given the chart we showed that, what that changes one way or the other. And we do know next year we're gonna have additional expenditure requests for firefighters and things like that from the schools. Things just continue to go up, and we hope.
So what you're saying is, we're gonna do this 8 cents and then you're gonna ask for another 8 cents next year?
If you go down, it just puts pressure to come back and say, I want and need additional revenue to support the ongoing operations. I'm trying to get where we don't have to do that. And the infill in the housing industry that we've got going on, and some businesses will take care of some of the general increases for a couple of years. But the lower we go, that push that the other way, where we'll be back not having enough money to meet what we need.
We will have a CARES fund for 2 years.
Right, and that just kind of sits in there to decide what you're gonna use it and what we just.
Or what we can use it for,
right? And that's not fund
And this
balance.
is really
That's not
hard,
fund
because we
balance,
don't know, we haven't
that's
got the
CARES money.
guidelines yet.
No.
We'll take it back.
Does that become fund balance?
Yes. Now, Mr. Cully, Mr. Rogers said something about the debt service that we need, I was trying to find the page. We needed 500,000 for,
Not really.
Yes, that was in there.
That makes
Now,
us
the
even for last
savings
year.
is not in there.
Right, but these additional,
But the additional amounts are included.
the additional,
The additional amounts
If you put it
for
in
the
now.
new, when they
our
originally
trend line
came
will
and
be
they
better.
gave us the plan, the
Yes.
finance plan, we have increased what our debt balances and payments would be
Right.
to ensure that we would cover that cost.
Right.
So it's already in the budget.
600,000
Yeah.
and something else. Okay,
You
we
go to
have a little bit of
600.
savings after we did those
It's
two bonds.
300,000.
Right.
So
I know.
about $200,000 that needs to be adjusted to
Right.
the budget.
What?
But all of those payments are already in the
But what he's
Already
saying-
done, okay.
You need to explain to him what we just,
What he's
All right,
saying is
so-
correct.
all right. Now,
All right, board members, we,
the only other, can I ask Mr. Cully another question?
yes, sir, Mr. Thomas.
Because we did a couple of things, and I don't know if Mr. Cully was here when we did them or he proposed them. But we've done a couple of things in the past, like activating, I can't think of the right word, but instituting raises that were proposed in December instead of July 1. So it was like 6 months it started.
We haven't done that since I've been here, but yeah,
Yeah.
that is happening. The state does that a lot.
And
They
there's-
approve the budget and put the raise in December.
So then there's X% of savings. Do you know what that would be? Are these numbers just half of what that would be?
And, yeah, I mean, you just, because they're all for July, so you would just take all those down by half.
I mean, the schools, we can't take down by half,
No,
because
you can't take that one down.
that's a,
Mandate. But you can't
mandate.
take, you can't take down mandated 5% because constitutional officers either, because that's mandated. To 92,110.
we give it
And
a
so that
5%.
would also go up, so
Wait,
you,
we give
we
it
covered the 5% of public
Yeah, right
safety
there.
plan.
92,000.
I'm taking that back in supplements.
So,
It's right there.
I'm taking that back in supplements.
so there would be, you can't just divide some of it out. There would be an increase in some if you didn't do the public safety pay plan. We have to make sure they got 5%. We have to make sure all of the people that's supposed to get 5% got 5%.
Got 5%,
Because of
yeah.
the state.
Yeah.
And we haven't looked at it that way of trying to start that in December.
You can't do it.
You can't do it with sheriff's office, it's, the percentage of people is small.
What do you mean?
I mean, you're just comp board salary.
Right.
But the county pays for half of
We
them.
just have to look at it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying,
For half of them.
yeah, but what I'm saying is that only affects, the comp board salary positions are 26.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
Half of them.
It's,
They got 50 is half, basically. So you're saying what?
I'm saying that's just comp board.
That 647 is not just comp.
No,
Oh,
no,
that's
if you
everybody.
did
That's public
half,
safety, that's fire and rescue and.
if you push that all off to December, there's a percentage of those you can't push off.
That's all. It's a small
That's all I'm
percentage.
saying. It's a small
percentage.
number.
We gotta figure it out, but yeah, some people would get a raise in July and others would get one, so you would be, there again causing some
Well, why-
morale issues with.
Why is that?
Because the state's mandated a 5% increase.
Oh, right, okay, never mind.
And
Never
see,
mind.
that's in here, but that 5% mandated constitutional officer employee is all the other people that are,
It's just,
Everybody, never mind.
it gets too complicated
I was
because of the way
slow.
the states
Never mind.
dictated things to it.
My bad. What's this 137 for law enforcement related expenses not associated with that increase? Is that training and-
No, 47,000 is health insurance, just people taking different health plans from what's in the current budget, and I estimated that today, that
Then we have an increase to RMS CAD annual maintenance, increase to telephone, increase to the drug enforcement fund, for special enforcement, and an increase in CTSI replacement of displays and cameras, which is our repair and maintenance.
repair and maintenance. And then fuel is up some,
None of that-
the gas has gone up, so I budgeted for more for fuel. Car repairs are up some, so it's just those kind of things.
Oh, we got like 42 cars in the parking lot.
And probably 20 of them are broken.
I mean, what we spend in maintenance, you're better off buying a new vehicle.
Well, that's why I tried to
I'm just asking because I'm asking what people ask me. There's,
They don't
The
have.
cars are all broken that are in the parking lot?
No.
Those are those ones that they sit and leave empty, so I slow down when I go down the road.
We're in the process of transitioning the old cars, so we don't buy all new equipment with every car.
right,
Some of those cars are stripped and ready to be transferred over to the county because we're getting new cars in and they're in the process of doing the switch over.
We take the equipment off.
Yes, sir.
And
The
remember,
radios, the cages.
yeah.
remember one year we couldn't get Dodges, by the time
Right.
we did the financing and canceled the contract, even though canceled the PO, even though we sent it in. So they ended up getting right many Dodges in this year that they should have gotten
flashing. They stopped making the cars.
Right.
So none of that 137 is like additional police training and things or like that?
No.
There's no additional funds for training in the
No,
sheriff's
it's
office?
mainly
budget?
maintenance, software maintenance, or so much of their stuff is computerized and the whole
Sequential question.
IVR stuff.
Sequential question.
99% of our training comes to the academy, which is funded by a one-time due membership fee. And we get all of our training from the academy, and it's a very limited amount of training that we have to do that's specialized, or we have to pay for. Because you pay like $336 per officer to the academy.
Every year?
Every year.
So every year, each deputy goes back to the academy for $336 worth of training?
That's our due membership for the academy, $336 per member at the department. Multiply that times 54 and you get your annual dues to the academy, and all the training is absolutely free. It's included in that $336.
And deputies have to be recertified on there's a certain basis of training. I don't know if it's every year, they don't have to be recertified all the
Yeah,
time.
but
But
recertified with firearms, that's legal and stuff of that nature, but we have to have at least 40 hours additional training every 2 years.
Every 2 years
Every 2 years,
of additional training?
yes, sir.
Sensitivity training,
Plus, we hold our own individual academy for the office as well here at the community center, and our instructors with the department, and the Commonwealth Attorney's Office comes in and gives instruction here at the community center as well.
none of that includes body cams or anything like that?
I don't think so. And then your body can't cost
currently
you to
do
be
not
on
have
real
any.
when you start dealing with the data that those things store.
But that's something that we're looking at. I mean, the problem is the cost, not only just the cameras, but also the data
Data
storage,
storage.
and how we're gonna get around that. That's a huge problem.
That story's not a big deal, man.
Only a video, it is.
The cost of disk drives is like way down.
It's still huge amounts of videos. It has to, video, storing videos to take the network down.
Yeah, I know it's giant, but
Yeah, giant files.
I've seen them transfer from the car to the server, so.
We're interested in pursuing that.
Yeah, there's something we can do.
You know,
with y'all,
money
we
is
just don't
tight,
do.
so.
And we can get you the cost.
Yeah, I'd like to know that. Okay. Because these are things citizens are asking us, and we're gonna say, okay, here's this 8-cent increase. Well, it's not gonna be 8 cents, or I'm not gonna go for 8 cents, but here's whatever this increase is, and what am I getting for it, and is this part of it? So I'm just asking kind of sequential questions. You'll excuse me for my bluntness, but I need to answer a question from somebody else.
You just passed the ability for us to replace all the out-of-service, end-of-life cameras in the cars. So every car has a car camera and an audio mic on the officer's hip. So even if you don't get the video, if he's away from the car, you can get the audio. Remember that?
Yeah, but this
Yeah, I
This
understand.
last
Yeah.
police-involved shooting, or sheriff deputy-involved shooting, the car wasn't pointing at the incident,
Right,
so there's no video.
right,
But if you had a body cam, there would be video,
that's correct.
and it's really just to protect, you know, the sheriff deputies, the county's insurance, because that's what happens in the end, so.
If we had plenty of money, we'd be asking you today for, you know, body cam.
The camera itself was like $200.
No, it's the data, it's software.
Yeah.
Service.
So Charlie, are the total money that we're giving to school, that we give schools in terms of debt service and based on their requests is how much? Operating,
service.
total cost,
You talking about debt service and?
everything. Are we around 22 million?
Well,
I mean, not 20.
They're gonna get over it.
You don't have to be
You're
exact.
looking at,
Give me a number.
it's 15,346,962 just in operations.
Right,
And
Debt service.
then wait a minute, let me go over
Okay.
these. Bus leases, 232,820.
right.
Buses that goes to their CIP, 536,689. And the textbook fund, 153,118. Debt service for schools. So here in other funds,
School debt service, $4,950,000 and $950,957. So there's almost $5 million more in debt service. So 15, you're at 20 plus, yeah, so 21.
22 million.
Yeah.
What about to the sheriff's office?
Public, just the sheriff's office alone,
Well, you can just do public safety then.
public safety.
That's
is-
easier for you.
Public safety is about 29% of the general fund.
Right.
And the schools are about 29, a little bit more than it's 29 something to 29 something, not counting debt service. So,
You said not counting debt service?
yeah.
So both are about 29 without debt
About the
service.
same.
You said debt service
Public
was 5?
safety, which is fire rescue, it also includes inspections.
Right, just, yeah.
And the jails and
Yep,
everything
yep,
we do is
yep.
$16,190,570. And it's 29.12%.
That includes
That-
that percentage for jails.
Yeah, it's our jails, the juveniles detention, McShin, inspections, animal control, not just the sheriff and fire and rescue.
Right.
But McShin is like $200,000.
No, I think we're
No,
at,
it's 40.
he wanted 70, no, we're more than that, 60 or 75. We've upped him over the years, although I didn't put any increase in this year. I can look that up.
And both those are out debt service, right? 20,
That's no debt service.
debt service for the sheriff's office either.
But
No,
I mean,
debt
for
service-
fire and rescue.
Yeah, debt service, fire and rescue, the sheriff's office, I can get you.
No, just don't, I don't need a breakdown. I just find,
That's,
okay.
but operations, what we give to the schools for operations, textbooks, and buses is about the same as
About
what
the
we do
same
for
as-
all public.
for all public,
All
okay.
of public, including jail. There are our two largest departments.
Okay.
And you can see like here, public works is 7.89. Community development is 2.43, parks is 2.31.
Right. So I guess, board, page 3 really gives you and Mr. Cully, after you finish that, if you just go back to the sheet, that's right there. I guess, so the question is really, you look at, page 3, which has the expenditures on it, and plus the top of page 4 in terms of debt service, 3 million increase, and that's the funds that Mr. Cully believes he needs in order to minimally touch the fund balance, correct? That's what you're saying, correct?
Correct.
So if we don't touch any of these items, then that's what you're looking at, that's what you're working against. So it sounds like we spent the last couple hours doing nothing.
No, the last couple hours were good, we're working on this. I'm glad you did it
Trying to
tonight,
figure out what
instead of at a board meeting,
That
because you
was
never
good to me.
could spend this much time.
You still need to go to the basic essence, 8, 4,
That
and
was
something
it.
from the thing, so. I mean, we're not going,
You can't do that tonight, though. You gotta-
No, I'm just saying, we look at,
no, that's what we have to do.
that's what we have to decide, and that's what the purpose of the meeting was, to determine.
We're saying we can't change much of this.
But
Based on where we are.
But
Yeah.
we can change it, but, so, this is what we have, board, I think we had a chance to look at it, I think you've went through the pages, I think you've looked at what needs to be done and where the money will go if we decide that's what we're gonna do. I think there's some agreement, there's some disagreement, and there's gonna be some heartache and easy heartache, because I take some Tums, I go home, some stomach ache, I guess, but, so that's where we are. I think we beat it up pretty good, so I think we come back to that number. So tomorrow we'll have the public hearing, let people discuss the budget, say what they want. Then the following week, the 20th, we'll vote on tax rate. Vote on tax rate, then the budget, correct? Right, so that's where we'll be.
Two public hearings, and then we vote on the tax.
Yes,
You can actually adopt the tax rate on the 20th.
20th,
What
right,
you can't adopt is the budget has to wait 7 days.
that'll be the
So you
22nd.
actually, no, that budget could still be the 20th. You don't have to, but I'm saying.
I'm not ready.
Wait, code, I'm just saying, code requires
Right,
the budget to wait 7 days, not the taxes. So the tax rate we would encourage you to adopt that on the 20th, so we can get that to the treasurer, the commissioner and treasurer can get that mailed out within a week.
okay.
So at least can go out late April to be due June 5th.
Okay. Mr. Long?
If, I just wanted to ask, if you get the final copy of what the CARES funds will be able to be
We'll send it to
used
you.
for,
Yeah, we'll
let us know. It would, I mean, it would be nice to know what we can use that for over the next 2 years.
Federal and broadband.
And,
There won't be the budget.
Right.
Mr. Black, you have any,
Basics going on.
you have any closing comments, Mr. Black, or any concerns, or something we missed, or?
I'm good.
You're good. Mr. Sealy, any concerns, something we missed? I'm good. Mr. Thomas? Mr. Thomas says he's good. I'm good. I think it was a hearty debate. You know, I like debating, I like fussing. So this was good.
I would never have guessed that,
No.
Mr. Underwood.
I kind of place both sides against the middle sometimes. So I think it's good to take both approaches. So, I'll take no other comments. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
There's a motion to adjourn. I get a second. Ms. Long, you second?
A second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Guys have it. We are adjourned until tomorrow night.
If they oppose, they can decision.